Recording in progress.
One more second. Okay. Call to order the Committee of the Whole meeting for Tuesday, October 11th. First item on our agenda tonight is roll call.
Miller? Rosado?
Here.
Beck?
Here.
Connolly?
Here.
Chanzit? Solfa?
Here.
Wolf?
Here.
Barron?
Here.
Lehman?
Here.
Ayazi?
Here.
Malay?
Here.
Ewer?
Here.
Cerrone?
Here.
11 out of 14.
Okay, thank you. Reminder for anybody that comes up to speak tonight, you can adjust the mic up here at the dais and address us there so that we can hear that on both in the room and then on BATV on our broadcast. The next thing would be items to be removed, added, or changed. Do we have anything tonight?
No.
No changes? Okay. And then item number 4 would be matters from the public for items that are not on our agenda tonight. Is there anybody here for that? Anybody online? Okay, then we'll go right on to the consent agenda. Alderman Chanzit is not here tonight, so I'll read that. Would be item A would be an approval of executive session minutes for June 28th, 2022 for setting the price of land for sale. And B, approval for executive session minutes August 23rd, 2022, setting the price of land for sale and setting the price for land for sale, the 2 items. Any questions or comments? And I'll make the motion that we recommend to council the consent agenda as read.
Second.
By Wolf, second by Solfa. Roll call, please.
Wolf?
Aye.
Barron?
Aye.
Lehman?
Aye.
Ayazi?
Aye.
Malay?
Aye.
Ewer?
Aye.
Cerrone?
Aye.
Vogelsinger? Aye. Miller? Rosado?
Aye.
Beck?
Aye.
Connolly?
Aye.
Chanzit?
Aye.
And Solfa?
Aye.
Motion carried 13-0.
Okay, let the record reflect that Alderman Chanzit has joined the meeting. And Vogelsinger?
And
Okay.
Miller.
Oh, okay.
Pfas.
And Miller is here. All right, so now we have 14 of 14 aldermen. Okay. Up next would be a presentation on Gun Safety Consortium. Alderman Rosado, did you want to start that?
Yes. I have been in contact with a few residents from Ward 6 that belong to the Fox Valley Presbyterian Church, and they wanted to talk on a subject, the Gun Safety Consortium, which is true and dear to their heart, and they want to make a presentation tonight and let us know what it's all about. I know they were here sometime, it was a while ago, but they'd like to make the presentation again.
All right. Come on up. You can use the microphone there.
Hi, my name is Jim Schwarber. I live in Oak Park, and I'm the testing coordinator for the Gun Safety Consortium. I work with the entrepreneurs developing gun safety products and with law enforcement agencies testing those products. 4.5 million children here in America live in homes with unlocked and loaded firearms. And there are over 380,000 guns stolen annually, many of which are used later in violent crimes. The National Gun Safety Consortium's roots go back to 2014, when the Metro Industrial Areas Foundation began to look for a way to act on gun violence. We had 3 requirements. It had to be bipartisan, winnable, and non-legislative. And these 3 principles drive our work to this day. After extensive research, we've determined that one way to do this was to focus on gun safety, since we know that less than half the gun owners lock their guns. Led by Mayor Cranley, then Mayor Cranley of Cincinnati, and with an alliance with the U.S. Conference of Mayors, we created the Gun Safety Consortium. Member municipalities pay dues to join and receive gun safety products for their officers to test. Our ultimate goal is for the National Gun Safety Consortium to get these innovative gun safety products in the hand of the gun-owning public in order to prevent suicides, gun thefts, and accidents. Gun owners look to two groups for advice on what kind of guns and accessories to buy, and that's law enforcement and the military. Thus, our strategy focuses on law enforcement evaluation, testing, and buy-in as the first step to get these products into the marketplace. In 2019, we met with the International Association of Chiefs of Police about the need to secure guns. This month, the IACP at their annual convention is kicking off a new campaign to encourage officers to secure their guns when off duty. The campaign grew out of our meetings and is called Right to Carry, Duty to Secure. We're working with 19 cities or law enforcement agencies in 9 states, from Connecticut to Florida to Colorado. Here in Illinois, we have 3 members, Park Ridge, Evanston, and the Kane County Sheriff's Department. In 2021, the steering team for the Gun Safety Consortium issued an RFP to developers for gun safety products that allowed quick access and could be used in a variety of situations. We received over 15 responses, and none of which were from major gun manufacturers. Members of the Gun Safety Consortium are actively testing these products, both biometric and mechanical. Most products are for handguns, although there are 2 trigger locks used on long guns. Over the next year, we will be testing 4 to 6 new products, and later this year, we hope to be testing our first smart gun, with another following in 2023. Participation in the Gun Safety Consortium is really not a heavy lift for the police department. Member departments appoint a testing coordinator. Many times it's the range master or training coordinator. We work with the department to establish a testing cadence and determine how many devices they want to test at a time, and we ask that 3 to 5 different officers test the products while off duty, and this is important, these aren't products to be used while they're on duty, and then to submit the online evaluations. Again, our 2 primary goals are to identify gun locks that are easier and faster to use than cable locks, therefore more likely to be used by gun owners, and we're working to fill the void in the market between cable locks and gun safes. And we also try to provide feedback to product developers. We had one developer pull his product after the initial reviews came in from the law enforcement agencies. With your approval, the next step would be to finalize membership for Batavia. We would then work with the police chief to begin testing. Thank you very much. Any questions?
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions? So for what you're looking for is you would like us to discuss, I guess, with our police department, find out if they would be willing to participate in that,
Yes,
to be a member, to be part of the testing
yes.
group for that? Okay. I think it's something that I think we should discuss. I mean, I think it's something that, you know, I've felt for a long time. I know myself and several other friends, we all had children that were in our houses that we had guns, but we all had them locked up. We had our ammunition in a different spot, and we were responsible. Granted, that's not everybody.
Right.
But the reality is I think we know the guns are there. We know that they're probably going to be there forever. And if we can do anything that can make it safer, if people are more responsible with them, I think that's a good thing. And it's a step in the right direction to try to make our area safer and less likely to have that problem or to have any problems with
One question that I would have is if your group has approached organizations that test police department equipment, because going from department to department and having them utilize the personnel within our department, it seems like might be less efficient than going to the organizations for law enforcement nationally that test equipment. So for instance, the fire department has organizations that test new equipment.
No, we've not taken that approach. We've gone locally, to build consensus around the country in various areas around the country.
Okay. Sean?
Because I say the police department are out there, talking to people on the streets. If they see a product they like, they can talk to them about it. And, hopefully, again, with the International Association of Chiefs of Police, they're establishing this as a new program where they're encouraging departments to provide safes to new policemen as a step to make sure their guns are locked.
And we actually do here in Batavia, that is part of our uniform allowance, is to allow our police officers to cover the cost of a gun safe at home.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, I was just going to say that we are familiar with the campaign that you had mentioned, that the ICP is starting the right to carry the duty to
Right.
secure the weapons. And I don't know what contacts you have there, but just on that more international, national level, I know that they do have firearms safety committees. That might be a good spot to try and get more and more agencies throughout the country on board. As Laura mentioned, we do offer our officers safes. We do also have gun locking mechanisms that we have. We were giving those out to the public. We're currently out of them because we actually just gave what we had left to Moms Demand Action, which is a local group, obviously, that also is trying to combat gun violence.
Right. Yeah, I think we've worked with Bob Champagne, who is on the firearms safety team with the ICP.
Okay.
Alan?
Okay. Tony?
Yes, thank you. Yes, thank you for coming out and sharing this with us tonight. There is a whole lot more information. I have received some links and looked into some of the links that have been sent to me, and I'll share with others. I fully support this. I would like to point out that the folks that are here tonight are from a diverse group, different congregations, different organizations. In fact, I formerly was, before taking this seat, was very involved with the Fox River Valley Initiative. These people are very committed. They're volunteers. They're standing up to do something. We've had debates. We've had people come out and say, "Don't you dare touch my Second Amendment rights," and all of that. But this is not about that. This is about creating safety, and this is about. Right. I believe us standing up to say we are going to be a participant and we are not going to stand idly by. This is an opportunity to put the message out. It's not about taking guns away from anyone. It's not about legislating gun laws. It's not about. It's about making guns safer. That is the bottom line. And the fact of the matter is, the vast majority of guns are purchased with public dollars. Throughout in our country, whether it be military or police, and it's paid for with taxpayer dollars. And I think as taxpayers, we should be demanding that guns be made safer. And I think this is an opportunity for us as a city to stand up and say, yes, we're on board with doing something. So I would like to put on the agenda further discussion as we all get some more information. If someone would join me with that,
I'd be happy to do that. I'd like to see us get on board with this. If our police department's willing to do that, I think we should. I'd also like to see us look into, I know we did it for a while. We were actually giving away gun locks. I think that's something that's important too, because then that brings it up on a regular basis when people talk about things like that. Then they realize, oh, you know what? My father does have guns at the house and doesn't have them locked up. And that's the kind of thing, like you have simple break-ins that people get into garages or into houses, and then guns disappear. And if they weren't registered, then people don't ever tell anybody about it.
Yeah.
So the reality is if we talk about it and we do something, then that makes it safer in this area. So I think that that's a good thing.
Or in cars, you mentioned break-ins in houses, guns in
Yeah.
cars that are stolen.
Yeah,
Quite often.
concealed carry is contributed to that a lot because people want to have them. They want to have them easily accessible.
Right,
But easily accessible also needs to be secure.
exactly.
So I think we should definitely talk about it, and then I think, if you can get us whatever information you've got, so we
Okay.
can circulate that to the whole council, we'll get it on another COW meeting, on an agenda, discuss it with our police department administration, and find out if that's something that they're willing to do.
Okay, great, and we'd be glad to come back and discuss
Okay.
it further.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay. Up next is Ordinance 2244, establishing special service area number 69.
Yeah.
For the-
I think we have somebody.
Oh, yeah, sure. You know what? We'll do that.
I'd like to bring kind of more of a personalized story, I guess, to this. My name is Kathy Hakinen. My husband and I have been residents of Batavia since 1985, and we are blessed to have raised our son in this community. Dallas worked at Fermilab for 37 years. In addition, I retired a few years ago after 37 years as a public school teacher. Throughout our experiences in the Fox Valley, we've been safe. But the world is not the same as it was when we moved here. I had to start teaching children how to protect themselves from gunfire in school, the place where our director of safety told our district staff was the safest place for children to be. And then 28 people were shot and killed at Sandy Hook Elementary School, 17 at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School, 10 at Santa Fe High School in Texas, 4 in Oxford Township, Michigan, and 22 at Robb Elementary in Uvalde, Texas last spring. Teaching children to throw music stands and musical instruments at perpetrators was not in my college curriculum. Let me say, I'm not here to comment on Batavia school policy regarding safety. I'm not familiar with that anymore. My son is over 30 years old. But I do come from the perspective that I'm most familiar, and that is as an educator. I've thought like a teacher since I was in elementary school. Things hit closer to home when 6 people were killed at Henry Pratt Company in Aurora 3 years ago, and last summer when 7 people in Highland Park died by gunfire. We could no longer say that gun violence was something that just happens in Chicago or low-income neighborhoods. And luckily, thus far, none of my family have ever had to experience situations like these. My husband Dallas and I have been part of the Fox River Valley Initiative since shortly after its establishment. Initially, our focus leaned towards other areas of the Fox River Valley's work, adequate housing and mental health care. But gun safety has become a priority now. I have to admit, there are times in the last few years when I'm not sure I feel safe in my own neighborhood, unfortunately. I have attended virtual meetings with the Gun Safety Consortium. I was able to sit down with Sheriff Hain and other members of the Fox River Valley Initiative to discuss gun safety in our county. And now I'm active as a member of Mothers Demand Action. I urge this body to become active in keeping our city safe. Make it even safer by working as part of the Gun Safety Consortium. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Rick Lathrop. My wife and I have lived here for about 24 years. We have been members of the Congregational Church of Batavia for that entire time. And our congregation has been a member of the Fox River Valley Initiative for the last 5 or 6 years. I would just like to share with you that we moved here in 1998. When I drive home, I'm going to be enjoying features in my car that weren't even available in 1998. Those little side mirrors that tell you if somebody's in your blind spot, we couldn't get those. I mean, it's ridiculous. Now our car has heated windshield wipers. It has heated seats. It has heated steering wheels. And when I get home, I'm going to enjoy things that were not available in 1998. And the next time I go to pick up prescriptions at CVS and Target, I may very well be bringing home medicine that was not invented and was not available in 1998. So my message to the council tonight is I would be really proud if our city became a part of the research and development to develop safe guns as one of the methods to reduce gun violence. And I just hope that I'm really glad to hear that you're going to consider it seriously, because it's something that I think is really valuable.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Steve McHugh from Geneva. I'm the co-lead of Moms Demand Action for Canon and Kendall County. And firearms are the leading cause of childhood deaths in America, age 19 and younger. That began in the year 2020. Prior to that, for 100 years, it was automobile accidents from the year 1920 to 2020. So what did the auto industry do? Very similar to what the gentleman just said. Volvo invented the 3-point seatbelt. And then laws were put into place to mandate seatbelts. And new inventions such as airbags, backup cameras, anti-lock brakes. I was in marketing research and advertising for 40 years. And one of my largest clients was General Motors. And all of the family vehicles, such as the Chevy Impala and the Ford Taurus, were always advertising and going after what was called 5-star safety. And that was the industry, or the standard for the car industry. How great would it be to have something similar for the gun industry? Everybody was chasing after Volvo and Subaru because they owned that area. Gun industry can have the same thing. So there's a very big advantage to being first to market in that area. Another question is, why do we need this in our area? You know, are guns really that big of an issue here? Well, I can tell you just anecdotally some stories. As was mentioned before, we hand out, we do tabling events, and we hand out cable locks, gun locks at different community events that are provided by the Batavia Police Department, also the Kane County Sheriff. We hand out over 1,000 cable locks a year. And just some stories that we hear as we're giving those out. In Elgin at National Night Out, a 7-year-old boy came up and asked his mom, can we get one of those locks for Grandpa? He keeps his loaded gun on the nightstand, and I'm afraid Jenny, his 3-year-old sister, would get a hold of it, have an accident. Another situation in Geneva, at a child safety fair at Chapel Street Church. A young mother with 4 young children in tow came up to our table and said, my husband keeps about 20 unloaded guns scattered around the house. Can I get one of those locks? Sure. We went to the gun show at the Kane County Fair, Kane County Fairgrounds. And one guy said, I have grandchildren. I'm not an idiot. I keep all of my guns locked up, except for the one I need to get to quickly. What we heard most often at the gun show is, what good is a gun if it's locked up? Where we got common ground with gun owners was on a biometric lock that they can open with their fingerprint real quickly, or even with your phone, with a swipe of your thumb across the phone, can open it up from another room. So that's exactly what the Gun Consortium is about. New technology that exists already, getting it in the hands of the people who will actually use it. So thank you.
Hello, Hello, thank you for your time this evening. My name is Amy Peeler. I'm a full-time college professor and a part-time pastor at St. Mark's Episcopal Church in Geneva. A few weeks ago, I had the opportunity to attend a national symposium on the prevention of gun violence in D.C. There were representatives from groups like Mom Demand Action, Homeland Security, DOD, and it was a very broad group in which there developed consensus on just these type of approaches. I see that on a local level as well in my congregation. We're purple, we're diverse politically, and this is an issue in which we have large buy-in. And so moving forward in research and development in the safety of guns is something that is that everyone can get behind and agree on. So thank you for already your agreement to consider this and discuss it, and I hope you're hearing the widespread support that we bring from communities in your districts. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Edward Manning, and I'm a leader with the Fox River Valley Initiative, the same organization Mr. Millay spoke about earlier. The FRVI is a broad-based community organizing group that consists of 20 institutions up and down the Fox River in Kane County. We are a member organization of the Metro IAF. That's the organization Jim talked about in his opening. Churches, a homeless shelter, social service institutions, teachers groups, and affordable housing developers are all proud to make up our membership. Although I personally live in Geneva, I've come to understand that the issues that plague us in the Tri-Cities aren't confined to any of our 3 cities. As well, neither are the solutions. Tonight, I'm speaking for the leadership in our organization who live, worship, or work in Batavia. We in the FRVI are united in our desire to see the Tri-Cities join the Gun Safety Consortium. In fact, the same effort we are putting to reach out to this council is being repeated in St. Charles and Geneva. The issue of gun violence in our country is daunting, overwhelming. No organization, no matter how big or small, can solve it. Even getting the ear of our members of Congress can seem to be next to impossible. But there's something we can do locally. We know that the issue of unsecured firearms, which lead to suicides, gun theft, and even violence against our law enforcement, is one that we can address and make happen in our communities. We urge you to consider joining the Gun Safety Consortium and become leaders for change in the gun safety culture in Kane County. Thanks all.
Thank you. Okay. Is there anybody else? Okay, thank you very much for coming down, and we'll definitely be back in touch with you again. I believe that we'll have our discussion and we'll decide where we're going to go with this, and then we'll move forward. Okay, thank you. Next is item number 7, which is Ordinance 2244, establishing special service area number 69 for the Winding Creek subdivision. And who is here tonight? Drew, do you have that?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
Yes, so tonight's item, if you recall, back in August, there was an approval for proposing ordinance for the proposing of Special Service Area 69. It did set a hearing date for the next City Council meeting. So Ordinance 2244 is the ordinance that would be reviewed concurrently with that public hearing and would take subsequent action on. The ordinance does establish a backup special service area, which would be dormant for all the properties within Winding Creek subdivision, and only would be activated in the event that the homeowner association ever failed in its obligations to maintain common open space. So the initial levy is set at 0 under the ordinance. The maximum levy, and this was part of the annexation agreement as well, would be a maximum levy of 50 cents per $100 of assessed value, but again, only levied in case the city ever incurred an expense. So we do recommend approval of Ordinance 2244 tonight, and we will have the public hearing scheduled for your next council meeting.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions? And the other reason we want to do these right away when we get this set up is because there's only one property owner right now. So that's something that part of the the deal with this is we could have people that would not want to have a backup SSA in their neighborhood and might fight it, but when there's only one property owner and it's part of the agreement that we had on it, we'll get this through and get this done. Okay, if there are no questions, I will make the motion that we recommend to council Ordinance 2244, establishing a special service area number 69 for the Winding Creek subdivision.
Second.
Motion by Wolf, second by Rosato. Roll call, please.
Wolf,
Aye.
Barron,
Aye.
Lehman,
Aye.
Ayazi,
Aye.
Malay,
Aye.
Ewer,
Aye.
Stone,
Aye.
Vogelsinger,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Rosato,
Aye.
Beck,
Aye.
Connolly,
Aye.
Chansett,
Aye.
and Solfa.
Aye.
Motion carried 14-0.
All right, thank you. Okay, up next would be item 8, ordinance 2245, demolition certificate of appropriateness for 107 Union Avenue. And this is, even though it's listed as Union Avenue, it's literally at the end of Main Street on Water Street.
Correct.
And it's so at the southernmost building of what was Marco downtown there.
Gated metal.
Yep, just pretty much a pole barn style corrugated metal building.
It's
There's
a
some
metal
foundation.
building that we believe was built in the 40s, maybe around wartime for some uses during the war. And actually, while it's in the historic district, it's not actually classified
Mhm.
in the district. So the Historic Preservation Commission, when they met on September 26th, they did discuss that and felt that there were no really historic elements with the building. So they deemed that it would be considered non-contributing. So they did end up recommending that the COA be granted to tear this building down. And, you know, the property owner may be able to speak to some future uses. I think the future uses are still a little bit unsure yet. Possibly some parking, additional parking for Water Street Studios and a few of the other businesses down there, but the uses are still a little bit undecided. But this building is really obsolete since Pomarco's moved out to our East Side Industrial Park. It's unusable for the property owner. So
Okay.
property owner is also here to answer
Okay.
any questions if there are any.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions on this one?
Oh, and I guess I do. So the future right now is just like a parking lot. There's no other development plan for this lot?
That's my understanding.
I don't know. I hear casinos are in the future, so maybe we want to go that route. No,
It's already in our school district. It's
it is
okay.
in the school district. What a win for Batavia.
And we don't have to deal with the traffic
Amen to that.
Right?
in town.
There are a number of moving pieces out in this quadrant, and at this point in time, we don't have anything specifically scheduled for there. However, we do hope and anticipate that in the future, with some other the changing dynamics in that part of town, we can see something else happen there. In the interim, it would be paved over after the requisite work is done for additional parking. But our hope is that at some point in time, in the not-too-distant future, it's something different.
Real quick question, Austin, while you're up here. The, would be now covered up, but it would be the south face of what will be opened up after you take that building down. Are you reusing any of what the building was, or is it just all going to be fresh, new siding to match what was there? Just
It's in the packet. I can walk you through it. I was going to try to click on it. We have a rendering of what it'll look like.
Right.
We
It
will.
it just looks like the building
Yeah,
just continuously
exactly.
goes around, but right now it'll be just a big hole.
Yeah, it'll be a
Yeah.
big hole. We'll put a temporary wall up once the appropriate work is done. We're going to put a brick facade at the bottom to match the existing brick that goes
Okay.
along the other two facades. And then it'll be paneling that'll look very, very similar.
To that.
The goal when we presented to the Historic Preservation was to make it look like we didn't tear anything down. so to try to make it cohesive with the remainder of the building.
And that's kind of just what I wanted to get out there, was that you're going to just try to make it look like it was that way originally,
Right.
so that it's there.
Yep.
And I know in the packet it said you're going to put the mural in storage for now. Is there a future plan for that?
As one of the largest proponents of public art in this community, absolutely, I'd love to find a spot for it. Where that will be, I've got some ideas, we just don't have a spot specifically for it. We've talked to Joe Guynepan, the original artist. The mural needs a little love. It's been up for a few years, so we're still working out the details, but there may be some touch-up work to it, either before it goes into storage or when it comes out and then goes up.
Jen?
I noticed, like, how do you access this portion of it? Is because there's like so many moving areas. Is it just, do you access it from the parking lot area that's currently not being used, so there's going to be the creation of another parking lot, or?
Yeah, I've grown up around these buildings, and sometimes I even get lost. So it's perfectly, there's a lot of moving pieces over there. So this lot is accessible from either down by the quarry off of Union, which is why the address is off of Union, so we can get to that lot down there. You can get to it via Water Street Studios, the roadway, the alleyway that was activated, that Water Street Studios strung those cool lights over and then did the murals on. You can access it through there vehicularly or pedestrian. Then there's also a staircase that we added a few years back to build pedestrian connectivity between this part and like down by where the food pantry is. So there's multiple ways to access the parking area or the outside area. The building itself is accessed through the area that we're going to tear down. There's accessible points that we will put back in, so a man door and overhead door, plus there'll be a overhead door, 2 docks, and at least 2 or 3 other man doors that are accessible. In addition to that, it's also accessible internally through the rest of the limestone building as well. So there's lots of different access points to it. The fact that we're built on a river valley, there is, the building, the entire building, not just the piece that we're going to tear down, but the entire building, there's, I think, over, 3 different levels as it goes down the river valley.
And so what is the intended use? Like, is it to be used as a parking lot? Or is it like, it could be parking or just kind of be open?
Yeah, what happens in the building business is eventually buildings become functionally obsolete. And, either some organization comes in and spends a tremendous amount of time, energy, effort, and resources to try to turn that building into something different, or they tear it down and eventually do something different with the property. We're in that latter category. So we're just taking down a 5,000 square foot component. It was a metal lean-to building that was constructed in haste, maybe during the war effort. Nobody really knows when it was built. That's the portion of the building that we're going to be tearing down. There's still going to be a large metal piece where the 5 murals that are up there are going to remain. At some point in time, I'm guessing, hopefully, that there's a lot of redevelopment activity that comes along there, but this part of the building no longer has a real use.
Does anybody online have any questions? Okay.
I just have one last
Okay.
question. Because I know that you mentioned, I'm sorry,
That's all right.
there's that access down to the food pantry. I've kind of seen that wall. It's a little scary. I'm not sure if I would be interested in walking down there. So, is there any concern with the trucks coming in that is going to be taking down this complex where it may disrupt some of the parking lots currently there and kind of make that wall a little bit more unstable?
I would think that the user that moved out of there, Promarco Global Graphics, had big, heavy semi-trucks with huge rollers coming through multiple times a day, every day, 7 days a week, 2 to 3 shifts. that the earth there, which is mostly built on bedrock, those buildings were built because it was on bedrock, so there's bedrock foundations on every single one of them. I would imagine that there will be nothing from an equipment standpoint for the demo of this small 5,000 square foot building that's going to be any worse than all those trucks and traffic and everything else that has come through there.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Okay, Abby?
Yeah, I would just reiterate, the idea of taking down a building to put in parking gives me heartburn, but I am super hopeful for whatever vision you have. I think this is one of the coolest little corners of town. It's when I'm just walking for fun, that's the path that I like to take down there, because you just kind of feel like you're time traveling and you feel like you're going back to a different industrial time in Batavia's history, and I love it, and I think that there's so much potential right there, so I will support this because I'm super hopeful for the transformation that's going to hopefully take place sometime soon.
Just use the term temporary parking lot.
Placeholder.
Okay, if no other questions, I will make the motion that we recommend to council Ordinance 2245, the demolition certificate of appropriateness for 107 Union Avenue.
Second.
Motion by Wolf, second by Malay. Roll call, please.
Wolf,
Aye.
Barron,
Aye.
Lehman.
Aye.
Ayazi.
Aye.
Malay.
Aye.
Ewer.
Aye.
Zarone.
Aye.
Vogelsinger.
Aye.
Miller.
Aye.
Rosato.
Aye.
Beck.
Aye.
Connolly.
Aye.
Jansit.
Aye.
Thank you. And Solfa.
Aye.
Motion carried 14-0.
All right, thank you. All right, up next would be item number 9, which is Resolution 22-103R, approving a preliminary plat of subdivision for the Batavia Logistics Center, KBC Illinois Investments applicant. This is for out at the corner of Crook Road and Fabian Parkway, and it's a little bit bigger than 5,000 square feet. I want to say
After
it's
a few zeros.
543,600 square feet in building space. So this will be a giant building out there, a set of buildings out there on that corner.
And I'll
Go ahead.
take over the presentation. Yes, so this is a preliminary plat review. Sometimes we do preliminary and final plat at the same time, but in this case, the Plan Commission at their last meeting reviewed a preliminary plat for this the corner of Kirk and Fabian for Batavia Logistics Center. The applicant is looking to build basically a speculative industrial building there, and as part of that, in order to start preparing where the respective easements would be for this project, as well as consolidating the lots, they're proposing this plat of subdivision. So a couple things to keep in note. They are proposing, like I said, utility easements. There has been put on the plans a entry sign easement area at the corner, as well as a location for the city to locate a windmill at that corner, so that is a benefit we'll have with this project. The plat also identifies the utility and drainage easements that are known so far. With final engineering, there might be a need for some additional easements to be dedicated. So there is language in this preliminary plat approval and the resolution to note that there might be the need and that those easements should be subsequently added. There is a condition of approval regarding our street at Hollister. Basically, if there was a need to ever close off that access point, their plans do show a connection point there with our street there. But basically, the easement, what we're looking to have on the final plat is basically some language that would allow for reversion of that and construction of a turnaround for the street if it was ever permanently closed off there. So the resolution does include those particular requirements. There's also a need to require some easements in some right-of-way or potential right-of-way areas that King County might request. So that is also included. One item that was not in the recommendations from the Plan Commission, but it was just bit of an oversight, was that the property owner has requested that basically the approvals that we are approving with this property be contingent on the applicant taking control or ownership of the property. So we have put a condition reflective of that in the draft resolution before you tonight. So the Plan Commission did recommend approval of the preliminary plat, subject to those conditions that are in the resolution. And so we do recommend as a staff approval of the resolution this evening.
Okay, does anybody have any questions? I guess the one that I wanted to make sure is that we know what, or have an idea of what the county's going to want for the 2030, 2040 plans that they have for their transportation, layouts, because I know we've already had interesting times out there moving some of our utilities out of their way throughout the process of expansion at that corner. And I don't want to see us stuck in the middle of that, approving something and then having to go back and change the layout of it or delay construction or anything else on the project because we didn't have all that put together on it. So that's the one thing that I think we need to be really cautious or really careful on, that we make sure that that all gets put into the original language of this so that it's done and the space is reserved for that, so we don't get stuck having to move things later on.
And staff has had meetings with KDOT
Okay,
regarding that
good.
and to try to facilitate if there is some agreement that might be necessary between Kane County and City of Batavia, that we would try to take care of that in as expeditious a manner as possible.
And maybe also ask the questions about if there's going to be any requirements for them depending on whatever the end use of this property is with logistics as far as traffic control or, traffic, whatever they need to do out there for, inlet and outlet from that property. Because I'm sure, with 500,000 square feet out there, they're going to need some improvements to the roadway to make that work. Gary?
Alan, the developer and engineer has already submitted to KDOT, and we already are, have had conversations that there will be a right-in, right-out off of Fabian, and they will grant a full access at the southern end of the site on Kirk Road, and then that will also facilitate future access into the Aldi property on the north side of their
Okay.
current building.
Okay, so I'm sure the KDOT's looking at all that. That's really what I want to make sure happens so that we don't get into this.
Yes, and they have a right turn lane going southbound into the site as well, designated, they have to put in there. So those have already been
Okay.
looked at in this stage.
Okay. Abby?
And it's really still speculative. We don't have any idea of who this might be built for.
Correct, yeah, the Plan Commission, the applicant did note it was still speculative. I believe there might be some representation
There is.
in the audience tonight.
They're looking to come up here and let us know what they know.
We were waiting for right time. Thanks, Drew. My name is Jason Spolsky. I'm the civil engineer with the project. I've got Jonathan Postweiler with KBC Advisors on the project. Andrea said it perfectly. We've been in constant communication with KDOT, submitted through them already. We'll be going through the agreement with the governments and all that kind of stuff coming up in short order, and I'll let Jonathan speak to the whole speculative nature of that.
Sure. Thank you, everyone, for your time tonight. In regards to your question on the speculative nature, there is not a tenant identified at this point. We have been responding to multiple tenant inquiries, and we hope to have one identified soon, but it is completely a speculative project as we go forward here today. Also, as it relates to the access on Kirk Road, we are going to be widening Kirk Road a full lane for approximately 1,300 feet, which should ease the truck traffic both inbound and outbound. Any other questions?
Any other questions while we've got them up here? Okay. Well, good luck filling it all up.
Thank you.
We'd like to see it
Appreciate
completely full, I'm sure, as well as you would like to see it full.
Likewise. Thank you for your time
All right,
tonight.
thank you. Okay, if there are no other questions, I will make the motion that we recommend to council Resolution 22-103R, approving a preliminary plat of subdivision, Batavia Logistics Center, KBC Illinois Investments applicant.
Second.
Motion by Wolf, second by Connolly. Roll call, please.
Wolf,
Aye.
Barron,
Aye.
Lehman,
Aye.
Ayazi,
Aye.
Malay,
Aye.
Ewer,
Aye.
Saron,
Aye.
Vogelsinger,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Rosado,
Aye.
Beck,
Aye.
Connolly,
Aye.
Chanzit,
Aye.
and Silfa.
Aye.
Motion carried 14-0.
All right, thank you. All right, up next is item 10, discussion on the Carriage Crest Drainage Project update. Gary, I see you want to start us off on this.
If I can get it up on the screen.
Yeah.
Shall I stop sharing?
Hang on. Oh, yeah, I was going to exit viewing. There you go. There should be a way to view that from the screen. There we go. I'll share. No.
Yeah.
Yeah?
I think so.
It's PDF. Why isn't PDF not showing up? Oh, there we go.
I don't know, but there it is.
There it is. We got it.
Cool.
Thank you, everyone. We're bringing back a discussion of the Carriage Crest Drainage Study tonight to give you an update on where we stand with the current project. In my memo, I had outlined where the study has been over the last couple of years. Obviously, we started back in 2019, performing a conceptual analysis. We did then a follow-up groundwater analysis in phase 1, and then starting here in 2022, earlier this year, we began the process of identifying, or evaluating, I should say, 3 potential routes for a gravity sewer option. That would take a gravity sewer down to the river. And we also, V3, who is our current engineering consultant on this project, is also tasked with performing final engineering once one of those routes was chosen. Our representatives from V3 are here tonight, so if we get into more detailed engineering, Dave Vogel and Jason Hawley are here. We certainly can ask them for if they have a few questions tonight as well. But at the end of EEI's 2021 investigation, City Council had provided staff with the option to go with a gravity sewer, and at that time, it was estimated that a gravity sewer would cost in the range of $3 to $4 million. We knew at that time that we had about $2.5 million of ARPA funds remaining, so we knew we would do some GO bonds to pay for the cost difference, but we were not anticipating that the latest cost estimates for gravity sewer have now come in $6.5 to $7.5 million. So considerably higher than what we had originally thought, almost double. So that's why we're back here tonight. The notion of bonding, $4.5 to $5.5 million of bonds is something that we felt was important to bring back to City Council. I want to take a step back. I don't know how many of you were here. Some of you were here, certainly. But I don't know if all of you were here in '96. The entire community was devastated in '96 with the flood, and Carriage Crest in particular. The Brayburn Marsh backed up into the subdivision, and homes out here were inundated for days. Brayburn Marsh issue was resolved following an overall drainage study with the county and improvements that were subsequently performed. But Carriage Crest was still left with a recharge basin that has caused issues for the subdivision really since it was built back in the 90s. Those issues have never been resolved, which is the crux of why we're doing these studies. During the 96 event, the entire city, again, was inundated with stormwater. Since 96, we have not experienced that level of storm. So the latest study from V3 identifies the watershed that I have on the screen, and that this is the entire watershed that is tributary to the Carriage Crest Basin. And staff agrees that this is the entire watershed. However, it needs to be stated that, since 96, we haven't observed overland flow or flow from these other areas into the Carriage Crest Basin. We've really only observed flow from the neighborhood and the immediate vicinity into the Carriage Crest Basin because these other areas have storm sewer systems, and those systems are adequate to convey more average, I'll call, storms. It is only during the really extreme events, such as occurred in '96, and undoubtedly they will occur again in the future, because that's the nature of extreme events. Even though the percentage in any given year might be very small, they can occur. But with the exception of those really large events, we just haven't seen that much flow, that much tributary area coming towards the Carriage Crest Basin. So with that as kind of the historical background, we do know that homes in the area of Carriage Crest some homes have experienced physical inundation of their basements. Other homes have just experienced excessive sump pump running. We know that there's been backyards that have been inundated. We know that there's been roadways that have been inundated. And again, all this plays into why we're doing these studies. What we're recommending tonight is for council to consider taking a pause in light of the fact that the latest gravity sewer option is $6.5 to $7.5 million. Taking a pause in pursuing the gravity sewer alignments and instead revisiting the notion of a pumping option. Now let's go back to the '96 storm. When those homes were inundated and that subdivision was inundated, it wasn't draining out in '96 until we actually began pumping into the Carriage Crest Sanitary Lift Station, which obviously we would never do in normal circumstances, but during extreme events, you don't have a choice sometimes. Jump ahead to just in recent years, since 2008. When we've gone out there and we started pumping, we have alleviated the issues. Our pumping efforts in modern times, I'll say since 2008, have really only begun after the storms have already begun, because we're not out there right at the beginning of the storms. It's been 12 hours, sometimes even 36 hours before we've gone out and began pumping, once we've really realized that the magnitude of the storm is such that we need to be out there pumping. A pumping solution for this in lieu of gravity sewer could involve a permanent pump station out there that would collect runoff literally as immediately as it enters the basin, and then begin to pump it out again, immediately upon the early part of the storm. And that could happen for all storm events, not just the most extreme events where we're out there today pumping. And that also could help to minimize, I won't say eliminate, because you're not going to eliminate, but minimize the amount of saturation of subsurface soils, because we will have a regular collection of runoff at the surface level and pumping it away, as opposed to allowing it to infiltrate and saturate the subsurface soils. So staff does think that a pumping option might be a good option to pursue. The idea being that, and I won't be able to zoom in, but the idea being that we would install grading and under drains throughout the basin so that surface waters would be collected and conveyed to a storm pumping station. My thought would be that we would have kind of what we call a jockey pump in the storm pumping station, so that for the smaller storms, it might be just a 4-inch pump. And that pump could then run and discharge whatever's needed for a smaller storm. But we'd also have larger pumps in there, or pumps, plural, and those pumps would be for the larger storms, and we would go out via a force main, just like you do in sanitary world, but this would be a stormwater force main that would pump the water away. Now, when we pump from the city, we've been pumping with 6-inch pumps or 4-inch pumps. And I'm envisioning the permanent station as having, 4-inch pumps and maybe 10-inch pumps. And the quantity of water with a 10-inch pump is just not linear. It's considerably larger than a 4-inch or 6-inch pump. So I'm not going to stand here and say that this is, the solution that would solve all problems for all storms. Part of the gravity sewer was to find that major storm event and then design a gravity sewer accordingly. So the gravity sewer has been designed to handle this entire watershed on the screen, although, again, it may be many, many years before this entire watershed on the screen were to contribute towards an event. So there has to be this balance between cost and benefit and proper sizing or more appropriate sizing, and those are all more policy decisions than they are engineering decisions. But I do think that a permanent pumping solution can be designed to accommodate most of the common storms, but not the most extreme storms. And again, since 1996, we could have had a pumping solution in place that would have handled all the storms we've had since 1996. But if the 96 event occurs again, the pumping solution won't handle that. So our recommendation is to pause right now. We would recommend creation of a subcommittee again at the city council level. And for the purpose of that subcommittee to perform additional public outreach to the citizens in the neighborhood, and there may be citizens here tonight. They were invited to come, and I bet they'll want to speak. And that subcommittee would also then reevaluate the other alternative options, like I spoke of tonight, to help mitigate the drainage concerns. We really feel that this is worthwhile to take a pause. We do think that a pumping solution could be implemented back in that closer to that original cost estimate, and kind of return us back to what we were thinking we were going to have to spend. And then I also mentioned in my memo that in addition to the pumping system, after the pumping system is up and operational, we have hopefully some funds remaining, we could look at doing some home improvements. That we know that there are some homes that have been particularly impacted. If there are things that could be done to help those homes, or if there are things that could be done to help other homes, that may still be an option in the future once the pumping system is up and in place. So I'm going to pause there and then wait for council's comments.
Okay. Anybody have any comments? I guess the first thing I would ask is if we do, say, a pumping solution, go that route, would that it's still going to require lines basically to the river into our stormwater system that we have, right? Or are we still going to have a main? It's just not, it doesn't have to be laid out to be a gravity main.
Right, so we would either take it to the river or take it to the marsh, and it would be a 10-inch diameter or 12-inch diameter pipe as opposed to a 42-inch or a 36 or 48-inch pipe, yes.
And that's what I was wondering, that would be a huge cost savings from that, but it would still be able to handle, or we would size it to be able to handle whatever was the biggest pump we thought we'd need there.
So the cost, right, there's a couple things you have in there. Some of the cost savings will come from an easier construction methodology because we're doing a smaller diameter pipe, and we do not have to do that smaller diameter pipe at such a deep depth.
Right.
Because we're no longer doing it by gravity. That's where cost savings would come in. And yes, we would size the force main based on the pumping capacity of the pumps and what we call head, or the force against the pump that needs to pump against.
Dan, go ahead.
Thank you. First, I want to say, Gary, thank you for all of the hard work that you have done and the rest of the organization has done. This has been politically and from an engineering standpoint, one of the most difficult projects I've had to deal with on my tenure here. And I appreciate the support that I feel from staff on this. I think a subcommittee is a great idea. I think it's an opportunity to stay focused on getting the details worked out, because it is going to be politically difficult to move forward. There are scores of neighbors who are very interested in the outcome of tonight's discussion. Many of them live in fear when they see a cloudy sky. Some of those homes are running their sump pumps 24 hours and are terrified of a power outage. The fact that, Gary, you're willing to think outside the box here and offer some very tailored solutions to some of the worst hit homes in this neighborhood. I think we can all agree that this neighborhood probably wouldn't be built like it is today with today's building standards and whatnot, or at least it would be built differently. So I appreciate you being willing to be creative here. The closest example, I think, of anyone on council is looking for one would be Lake Williston over in Wheaton. A neighborhood there along Williston Street had very serious flooding issues, and in the worst case scenarios, it turned into an eminent domain issue, where the city actually had to acquire people's homes, unfortunately, at a time when housing prices were terrible, and people ended up having to show up at their closings with checks for $50,000, $75,000 to basically pay off the underwater on paper with the bank balances on their mortgages. It was not a good situation. Now we're faced with a situation where housing prices might be inflated, so that might not actually even be an option for us here. But Gary, can you touch just very briefly on what types of tailored solutions are at least in the arsenal? Not to say that we would implement them, because I know that they all come with costs. But when I look at a $7 million bill here, I know we could spend that money better if it was targeted to the worst hit homes and still be able to provide some resolution to the pain that my neighbors are feeling. Could you touch on those just very, very briefly?
Sure, Alderman. Some of the, I'll put it in quotes, some of the simple solutions might be, you just mentioned people living in fear of a power outage. So it might be as simple as a generator system, natural gas generator system that would enable their sump pumps to keep running in a power outage. In my home, I actually have a water-powered backup system, which again, if you have the right size water service coming in and sufficient municipal water pressure, you can have a water-powered backup system, or there's battery-powered backup systems. Those are the simple solutions. More complex solutions might be additional sump pumps in particular basements. I know some of the hardest hit homes in this neighborhood already have multiple pumps, so adding another pump probably isn't a solution for those homes. And then the most complex and most expensive might be to literally take a house's basement, move the mechanicals upstairs, and turn the house into a slab. And then, that might be an option. So again, that gets into individual house construction and how that might all work. But that goes from the simplest solution to probably the most expensive and complex.
Thank you. So my hope is that I'm certainly willing to lead this subcommittee, or certainly co-lead it if George, you have the time and interest in this. Some of the most poignant and successful conversations that I think I've had have been literally on people's doorsteps. I know we had a socially distanced one a couple of years ago where the neighbors invited me out to stand in ground zero, and I think it was about probably 40 or 50 neighbors, and we all just talked. And we talked our way through some solutions, how to get through these next steps, even did some coaching on how to give some public presentations. But it's a neighborhood that is very eager to work together to find a solution here. So when you say a pause, it's gonna be a brief pause, because I do have a feeling that this neighborhood is committed to helping find a solution and working directly with the city to keep this moving forward. And I know there've been some new council members that have joined. I would ask them to get educated as quickly as you can, because I know these neighbors are certainly counting on us not forgetting about the commitment that they think that they've had for at least the last 5 or 6 years with getting this project moving forward. I would propose a subcommittee of at least 3 aldermen, if there's another alderman that would be interested in joining us, at least 1 or 2 staff members, and then 2 or 3 neighbors that have the time and are open to all types of different solutions, and aren't just looking to get us to buy their house. Thank you.
Abby?
Dan, I'd be willing to join your subcommittee and think that makeup sounds really good. I'd also be interested to know, I mean, with EEI's experience or V3's experience, both of them too, on what they've seen other communities do in these types of situations. I think that would be very informative.
Great, thank you.
Okay.
Alan, I had a question.
Go ahead.
Gary, what is the life of the pumping system? Like, what would the maintenance and upkeep of that look like?
So I would envision it to be a permanent lift station, just like our sanitary lift stations.
Okay.
So the pumps themselves need to be rehabbed or replaced after a 20 to 30-year lifespan. But and Carriage Crest is a good example. That's a sanitary lift station structure that was built in the 60s that we just rebuilt in 2011. Even though it was built originally in the 60s, it's now brand new again in 2011, and it'll last another 50 years. So this would have to be a permanent solution that would require rehab and reconstruction, 20, 30 years down the road. And it would be maintained just like our other lift stations.
So I guess my question is the maintenance aspect of the pumping more significant than the gravity sewer option? So in 30, 40 years, I mean, how does the cost all play?
No, it's a very good question, and I don't have that answer here tonight. The cost, the life cycle costing of a pumping solution versus a gravity option. Obviously, we're starting from a $3 to $4 million differential, and how much can we maintain a lift station over the years, and potentially have to, well, not potentially, would have to replace it over the years. How much do we overcome that $3 to $4 million initial option? Yeah, no, it's a great question.
I guess the pumping station would also include a generator, correct?
Pumping
To make
station
sure
also
that
have
it
to
wouldn't-
include backup power.
Yep.
Yes. So when we built the Carriage Crest lift station, we actually built the Carriage Crest lift station with extra room on the inside of the building for motor control centers. Luckily, we know the electric utility, so we know that electric's going to have to be upgraded, but we also have conduits in place. Our thought process was when the time comes, we could always just pull in new wire to be able to handle the additional pumpage. And the backup generator out there today is also not sized properly, but it is able to be, we have the provisions in place to be able to take that generator out and put a larger generator in. So when we built Carriage Crest, we built it with the notion that it may one day turn into a joint stormwater and sanitary facility.
So you could locate that pumping station within the same.
If the engineering works out, which it could,
Mhm.
you have the surface collection system that I spoke of, drain it to the east across the park, it'd just be a pipe underneath the park. No one would know the pipe goes under the park, to a deep well, if you will, a deep well located next to the Carriage Crest sanitary building out there. That deep well is your sump pump, if you will, and that's your sump, and you have your pumps down in there, and they pump it out from there.
Any other questions?
Alan, I have one more. So, Gary, if I understood you correctly, you felt pretty confident that the gravity sewer option would have handled a flood event like the 96 one. Is that correct?
I don't know that I'll go so far as to say the 96 event, but I will say the whole watershed up here is in the context of a 100-year event, and so that's a 1% chance of occurrence in any given year. That's what we were designing for. The 96 event was kind of called NOAA. That one has, I would guess, probably a 0.2% chance of ever occurring in any given year again. Probably a 500, 400, or 500-year storm event.
So the pumping system would be able to handle the 100-year event?
Nope, I don't think the pumping system can handle a 100-year event. I think the pumping system's probably going to be more in the 25-year event. And again, since 1996, we haven't seen it since 1996, this whole watershed flowing towards Carriage Crest. We've only seen the blue and the red area. So if we can come up with a pumping solution that handles the blue and the red area, we're going to be covered for most storm events, not all storm events.
Okay.
And I'll kind of jumping, because I got to touch on that point again. There are no storm sewers throughout town that we designed for the 100-year event. every subdivision that's built today, including Winding Creek, which is going in right now, is built with 10-year storm sewers. And we have overland overflow routes to bring 100-year storms overland to stormwater facilities. Those stormwater facilities have overflow routes in case they overflow. So modern subdivisions aren't built with 100-year storm sewers. They're built with overflow routes that allow water to flow. This subdivision was just allowed to go in with this notion of a recharge basin, which certainly would never be allowed today.
Okay, I guess, I think Gary's right. I think we do need to take a pause on, where we're at with this and decide, I guess maybe put some real numbers with the pumping station or pumping solution, what we think that would
Including
be,
life cycle costing.
right, and show some of that for comparison so that we have an idea of, what we will end up deciding to do with it, and then come back to us with that.
Yeah, and I
We
made it
can-
clear in my memo at the end of the memo that after this pause, council may still elect to go forward with the
Right.
gravity sewer.
We may look at it and say that the cost is close enough and, the benefit may be better to have not a permanent solution or, an end-all solution, but something that we think is best for the neighborhood.
Staff just thought it was prudent to come back, given the
Yeah,
rather large cost increase.
yeah, that's a big change.
Yes.
Okay. And then, I don't know if we have anybody in the audience that would like to come up and address us on this. If you want to come up here one at a time, all we need is your name
I'm Jeff,
for the record.
and I'm I'm in the blue area. And I've been there since 1988. I was one of the first residents in that area. I was here in 96. I had 4 feet of water in my basement. And I wasn't prepared to speak tonight because, like most of the residents in that area, we thought we were moving towards a solution. We thought there was a commitment by the city to get this done permanently. We were here several years ago, and I was here with a woman that cried and talked about how her basement flooded, about how she can't get insurance for her basement any longer for her house. It's cost many people thousands of dollars. If you would look at my house today, go down the basement, you see my drywalls from here down from the last flood of 2020, right? Not 96, 2020. All my carpeting's gone, everything's ripped out. I can't rebuild that until this is solved. I can't sell my house till this is solved. And we have neighbors that thought we were moving towards a solution. In fact, we were told that they thought construction would happen this year or next year, and there were some delays and cost and additional cost and problems. So I just want to share with you that this is a serious deal. And if in some of the write-up, and I get that this is a lot of money, but some of the write-up makes it seem like it only happens every so often. When it does happen, it's bad, right? So in my situation, I've got 2 sumps in my sump pit. And one is a little giant 4,300 gallon per hour sump pump. It doesn't keep up when things are bad. I have 2 sumps in there. That's over 4,000 gallons an hour that it's pumping out of my sump pit. The water is shooting in. And I know it's been said that after 12 to 36 hours of pumping, that the levels go down. Not with my house. I've got notes and documentation on a letter that I sent to the city. May 17, 2020, our street was flooded for the second time in a week. COB came out and pumped. I was already done pumping the first station May 22nd, yet my pump pit was filling every 2 to 3 seconds on the evening of May 22nd. That means the sump pump is filling every 2 to 3 seconds. Not 2 to 3 minutes, 2 to 3 seconds, right? And it was over a week later that I think it was down to, on May 25th, the pit was filling at the rate of every 11 seconds. It's May 25th, from a May 17th flooding, right? That's significantly after that pump time period. It's a problem. And I was told, well, how about a backup generator? When you have 7 seconds and that pump pit is filling, 7 or 11 or 2 seconds, there's no generator that's going to keep up. I have a battery backup. I have a generator. But you can't even click on fast enough, and you have to be there. Every time it rains with any degree of 6 or 7 inch, of 3 or 4 inches, my wife doesn't want to go out of town. We have to stay home and watch the sump pump, right? So I thank you for your time. I thank you for your efforts in looking at. I know some of you weren't here some time ago, but think about it to yourselves in your own basements, in your own house. And I thought this was going to be a meeting to talk about an update on a resolution, and we're getting really close, and now we're backing up. And if I recall, the last time we talked about these moving the water out someplace, the big negative on that was we're just moving the water into somebody else's problem. The only real solution is a gravity sewer line out. But that was the big concern by people, is if you're just pumping it out someplace, it's just going to go someplace else, and we could just move the problem to another part of the community. So that is a concern and something that needs to be looked at. I'm not an expert in all this. All I know is that I've been bailing out my house, and I can't sell it till this is resolved. And I've been here since '88. I've raised my family here. Like you, I love Batavia, right? I just don't get it. And I told my wife before I came here, because I read the documentation just before I came here, threw me off because I wasn't prepared to speak. I wasn't at all prepared to speak. But I said, you know what I'd like to do? During the next storm, I'd like to get some of your phone numbers and invite you over. Call you up and invite you over to see what it's doing. That water in that 4-inch sump pump line, the drain tile is literally shooting in the sump pit. That's how bad it is. So is it a problem? Yeah, it's a problem. So I appreciate taking another look at it, appreciate the work you put into it. I appreciate you all looking at this and saying, yes, this is a problem. I ask you to think about your own homes. Do you have basements? Do you have rec rooms down there? I don't have one anymore. It's just storage. I can't build one, right? It impacts my house. It impacts my finances, and I'm not the only one. And I could go to my next door neighbor. He's fine, right? But there's enough of us out there where it's impacting us to a very large degree. So thanks. Appreciate it. Appreciate what you do every day. I know this is hard. You got other jobs. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, PJ Fitzpatrick. I live at 1075 Parkview Drive, and I'll start out by just saying ditto. And I won't kind of restate some of the things, but same as my neighbor here. First of all, I do appreciate and want to thank the city council and the staff, for the years of reactive response to the issues we've been having. And again, for the proactive response, since 2019, taking a look at what kind of solutions are there for us in our neighborhood. The city, the council, the staff, the fellows at EEI, the V3 consultant guys, everybody, trying to take a look at trying to solve our problem. We're in a unique situation over the last couple years because we really haven't experienced the problems that we do on occasion. I would offer that 96 is an extreme event for everybody, and that's kind of the high water mark, no pun intended, for a lot of different things, but it's not necessarily those events that are the problems. History will tell us, that hope is not a recipe for success, and that based on what we've seen in the past, we're probably due for another event pretty soon. I mean, the events that have been affected me, my neighbor, and several other neighbors in the area, were in 2008, 2009, 2013, 2015, 2019, and 2020. So the fact that we've had a couple years of a reprieve is a great thing, but, like I said, history just, I think, telling us that we're probably about due for another event. And those are usually not very fun for our neighborhood. The only anecdotal thing that I can add to what was already been presented in terms of the magnitude of what we experienced in these basements, after the 2019 event where, I have 4, 2-inch pumps running, in addition to a couple other, I drop into the ejector pit. I decided to go ahead and install another sump pump after the 2019 event, hoping it might save me. And in 2020, all those pumps ran consecutively, I mean without cycling, consecutively for just under 6 days. So 6 days to try to keep up and get the water out of the basement. So, you know, in 2020, thankfully, everybody was into the work from home environment, so I could at least stay home and keep an eye on it. Where in the past, you know, you're just kind of at the mercy of what's going to happen. So, some sort of a solution sooner than later would be greatly appreciated. I can also appreciate the cost increase. I think the construction industry has seen a tremendous increase in costs, and I kind of feared that it might impact the progress of this project. But two words kind of come to mind, after tonight's presentation, and they are time and certainty. Time is something we don't have a lot of anymore. The clock's ticking. We're getting ready for another event. It's just a matter of when. But certainty is making sure that whatever we come up with, whether it's gravity, whether it's pumping, is a solution that it is going to solve our problem, and we're not just hoping that we solve the problem. So as it pertains to any kind of a subcommittee that requires residents, I'm volunteering to be on that committee. I feel like I've been pretty open-minded working with staff and the problems we have over the past to try to come up with an effective solution, not just for me, but for the neighborhood. So again, thank you very much. Any questions for me, I'll be here and sit in the back.
Thank you.
Good evening, Dennis Kelter, 746 Carriage. There was a lot of momentum in the neighborhood that this was in go space, and now we're not hearing that, and you'd have a lot more people here. I think if they knew that this was not in go space, we thought, all right, you got to spend $1 million. Let's go. Let's dig this hole and go. That was the attitude in the neighborhood. And now we're hearing pause, which I can appreciate, but at the same time, you go through that neighborhood over the years, forget 96. I'm talking every 3 years. You go down the street, I walk it all the time. There's carpet, there's a rain. People pulled the carpet out of their basements. I mean, and if you bring up the video clip from whatever it was 2 years ago when there were a lot of people who were talking about this, you could see all the aldermen, you guys got it, that this really needed a solution. And you were like, yeah, it's been a long time, and you really needed to get to it now. And so I'm just trying to bring back that emotion that there's really needs to be some solution here. And if you want to pause to think about things, because, it's already getting fall and you're not going to do any construction in the winter or something like that, that's fine. But there's just got to be some solution here. And you got to think about it, not just 96. That's just a bad discussion. Yeah, that was a 1 in 500, but they live with it every day, and it comes along quite often. So it's something that it's just not a once in a 10-year type thing. It's every 3 years or something. You see somebody's carpets out in the street. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, anybody else? Well, I think I don't know if I speak for everybody, but I would like to say that I think that this is something that the city is committed to. We do have money that we've already talked about and tried to earmark for this. It's trying to come up with what we think is, or what our engineering advisors will think is the best solution that we can afford to do. And to do it right and do it once, so that way we're not coming back here 2 years, 3 years, 5 years from now saying, well, yeah, you guys spent all this time and all this money and it didn't fix it or it didn't help us. So I think that's one of the things that we want to make sure that when we do this, that we do it and it does affect a solution to it. Because I think that is important, that has to happen. Dan, go ahead.
Someone had told me that they were going to join the Zoom call and try and address us through there. Do we have anyone that they wanted to speak?
Yes.
Any residents that signed up?
Yes.
And then my last remark would just be, when we use the word pause, like I said, I don't think this is going to take very long. I'll work directly with Gary and even IT staff. We should probably get a quick email address set up for ourselves to get things started. I'm prepared to meet as soon as next week, and if we can get on the same page very, very quickly. This list might only be a 1 month pause during time. We're not even doing any construction anyways, so I'm not interested in wasting anybody's time either.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Lindstrom?
Yes, thank you. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. Well, as many others have started, thank you to everybody again. I just want to remind everybody that's possibly new that the reason we're sitting here today is during COVID, when budgets were constrained, money was tied up. This committee did approve the money to allow the engineering study to go through, which has allowed us to continue up to this point today. So, we've been through a lot, but we're here today because of the efforts in this room. So thank you to everybody. I listened to the gentleman speak earlier about the options, and again, it was mentioned, but I want to reiterate, 96 was a long time ago, and I think if we stop and reflect, we really rallied around the 2019 storm, where I think we had like 5 to 7 inches of rain in 3 days, and that really opened up everyone's eyes, and we really we sat down in the driveways, as Mr. Chanzit had mentioned, social distance during COVID, and really talked. That was really our launching pad to really get some action going and to start working closer together with our neighbors and aldermen. So, 96, that's not the driving force anymore to this. It's the events that happen every couple years. There was one other story I wanted to share. A couple months ago, I walk my dog regularly in this neighborhood. I teach in this community, live in this community, I'm raising my kids in this community, and it had rained 2 days prior, and I was out walking my dog. The streets were dry except for water that was running down a curb into one of the sewers. So I honestly thought maybe somebody was emptying their pool, because it was like August, and sure enough, there was no pool being emptied. There was no rain. There was nothing puddling anywhere. The water was just flowing from somewhere I didn't know. So I thought there was a water main break. So I called Public Works, and you can see there's a record of my call. I called once, and they said, we'll send somebody out. I went for a walk a couple hours later, and there was nobody out there, and the water's still flowing. Well, the conversation with the lady on the phone was that they had come out, and they said, well, that's just how that neighborhood is. It'll be gone in a day or two. Now, it hadn't rained for up to 2 days, but water was still flowing from some random spot bubbling up into the curb street area and flowing down a sewer. That just tells you what's going on in our neighborhood. That was very telling to me, and it's just concerning that the pause is concerning. But if we get to an end solution that's going to provide us some sort of long-term safety from these 10, 25, 50-year storms, I think you'll find a lot of these neighbors are going to be somewhat happy with that. The ultimate goal of the gravity system would have been far better, but I don't know. I just wanted to share those few things with you guys. Also pledge my support to this team as another neighborhood participant, and hopefully this committee. And hopefully this pause is only temporary, and we can move forward here and really come back with some options and some answers to get construction started. Because these homes, these folks, I'm not even the worst of it. And what Jeff was talking about earlier, he's not even the worst of it. Imagine that. You get a few folks closer to and around Carriage Park, it's awful what they're dealing with. Awful. But us as a whole, as a community, we are literally being held hostage and in fear every time it's going to rain, because we don't know what we're about to encounter. So thank you again. Appreciate all the help. Hope it's a short pause, and hoping I can help Dan and the team and move forward here.
Thank you. Okay, Andrea.
I just want to make a comment. I know Gary's mentioned the word pause, and right now, if we were to just continue moving forward, we were looking at having construction documents ready sometime at the end of January to be let out to bid in February, potentially for a spring construction season. So as mentioned, this pause may just be a month or so, and then we can continue on that route. So there is still a potential that we can have construction sometime next year. It may not be all completed in 1 year. And even with some of the routing that we have, just because of the deep sewers and or locations, it may not have been able to be completed in one season anyways, as with the other, the Area 3 project that I did. We started at the river at the outfall and did a fall construction to work our way up a little bit, and then continued moving upstream through a series of seasons just because of the scope and size of that. But just wanted to give you guys that update just to kind of put it into perspective that it may just be a couple months delay where we can start in the spring, and we can hope for another drought season, which has kind of delayed this project because when we were looking for those samples, obviously we weren't getting any water going into that basin. So like I said, we just felt that this was best to evaluate, and who knows, maybe gravity will be the best when we come back, because we will come back with discovery of looking at the pumping. And I know Leah brought up the cost analysis as well, so that will be looked at and brought back to you guys for a decision.
Thank you. Sarah, I see you have your hand up. Go ahead.
Thank you. I just want to say thank you to the residents who came and spoke to us tonight. Definitely drives home the importance of this project. And thank you to Andrea and Gary for giving us explanations on everything. Definitely interested in that cost equation. And Dan, if you need more help in this committee, I would love to help too. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay. So I guess then we need to decide, do we want to put some kind of time frame together on when you want to come back to us, Gary? Do we know what kind of time frame we'd be looking at to get options on?
Well, as Alderman Chanzit said, I think we're going to try and get, if council wants to move forward with the subcommittee, I think we're going to try and get a field meeting with the residents as soon as we can.
Okay.
Weather permitting, and, hopefully it's not raining like it is today. Get a meeting with the residents, to have a workshop with them. We're not going to have a final solution after that meeting, but we're going to get feedback and ideas, and we're going to share our ideas. Then we need to circle back with V3, because we'll need actually engineering input and some time for V3 to do an analysis. And then we need to, again, come back to City Council. So you can assign a timeline to it, but I guess the other half of that equation is we know we need to keep moving and move and
Right.
not pause. So,
And I guess what I was just maybe asking for was an estimate of what you think that's going to take. You think it's going to take a month? Do you think it's going to take 2 months? More so so that the residents understand that this is the path we're taking to try to get to resolution, and it's going to take us a couple of months probably to get there.
it is the middle of October right now, knowing that at the end of 1 month from today, we're getting into Thanksgiving and the holidays at the end of the year. I won't be surprised if, I'm hoping that we would have something prior to the Christmas and New Year holidays. That would be my goal, would be to get something prior to the holidays, certainly before the end of the year.
Okay. All right. Thank you. And thank you for everybody that came down to talk to us tonight about this. Okay, up next would be item number 11, Ordinance 2246, an ordinance authorizing the City of Batavia, Canon, Dupage counties, Illinois to issue sewerage revenue bonds, an aggregate principal amount not to exceed $35 million in evidence of loans issued pursuant to the Water Pollution Control Loan Program. Mike, do you want to start us off on this one, or we want to have? Peggy, did you want to come up and talk to us about it? Since it's lots of money, and that's when we have you come in and help.
Yes, it's lots of money. And that probably is not going to cover all of the costs. In discussions I've had with Gary over the last couple of weeks, there will be some things that the loan will not cover. We don't have those numbers yet. Hopefully, Trotter will be getting those to us before we come to you with the budget.
And one thing I wanted to bring up too, just to remind everybody that we had really planned out that, we knew we were going to spend this money to do the work we're doing, that we had, what is it, a 9% increase every year, or 8 or 9%?
8%.
8% increase on
Right.
our rates every year, so that we build up the money to take care of paying this off. So it's paid by the
Right.
ratepayers.
The revenues in the water and sewer utility are a lot lower than the electric utility. So those increases, although they're substantial to the individual that's paying them, it takes a long time for that to cover the debt service on $2.1 million.
Does anybody have any questions? Anybody online have any questions? I know we had talked about this already leading up to this, to get to this point, so I don't know that there were any more questions. Okay.
Okay.
If there are no other questions, then I'll make a recommendation that we move to council Ordinance 2246, an ordinance authorizing City of Batavia, Canon, Dupage County, Illinois, to issue sewage revenue bonds in aggregate principal amount not to exceed $35 million and evidence of loans issued pursuant to the Water Pollution Control Loan Program.
Second.
Motion by Wolf, second by Chanzit. Roll call, please.
Wolf,
Aye.
Barron,
Aye.
Lehman.
Aye.
Ayazi.
Aye.
Malay.
Aye.
Ewer.
Aye.
Saron.
Aye.
Vogelsinger.
Aye.
Miller.
Aye.
Rosado.
Aye.
Beck. Connolly.
Aye.
Jansen.
Aye.
And Silva.
Aye.
Motion carried 14-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, up next is item 12, is Resolution 22-104-R, approval of consulting agreement with Water PIO LLC for PFAS communications planning. Gary, you're up again.
Thank you. So first of all, what is PFAS? PFAS is a acronym for perfluoroalkyl and polyfluoroalkyl alcohol substances, and I'm not a chemist, so I probably butchered those names. PFAS are found in really all materials that are stain and water resistant. So in your homes, if you've ever walked in bare feet on your carpet, you've been exposed to PFAS. If you've ever worn a raincoat, you've been exposed to PFAS. Firefighter turnout gear, PFAS. Your plastics in your car, PFAS. PFAS is all around us. There's no one that is not exposed to PFAS anymore. They're chemicals that invade our daily lives, and they're chemicals that unfortunately will be here forevermore. So for decades, public health officials have known about and been monitoring PFAS in public water supplies. And in June of '22, so just this past summer, the EPA now has issued a public health advisory level related to PFAS. And it's important to note that health advisory levels are not regulations, but the EPA is coming out with regulations. And the levels that were cited publicly in the health advisory level are currently levels that we can't even test for. The technology does not exist. They're to the quadrillions, and the technology doesn't even exist to test to that. So I was at APWA in August, the national conference, and we have gotten some inquiries about PFAS over the years. Certainly knew that it was a topic that is gaining momentum in the public eye. Laura mentioned that there are 60-minute stories on it, and our notion is that when regulations are issued, there's going to be a heck of a lot more public advertisement in the news media, and again, stories such as 60 Minutes about PFAS. So we want to get out in front of that issue. We want to really, first of all, make our residents confident that we're on top of the issue and that our drinking water is safe, and we're monitoring, and we're educated on the topic. And we want to be able to get that message out in our consumer confidence report, on our social media feeds, on our website. Basically, we want to be able to convey confidence to our consumers so that they have confidence in our water system. While I was at the conference, I attended a PFAS seminar and talked about the importance of proactive communications. The gentleman who spoke actually had been involved with a PFAS scenario in North Carolina, where that water utility found itself behind the eight ball with high PFAS in their water system, and so they needed to kind of communicate reactively, and we want to try and keep ourselves out of that position. In 2020, we did test for 20 different PFAS components, and all those results were non-detect at that time. We have well water. That's a positive for us, generally speaking, and again, generically speaking, PFAS are more pronounced in surface water sources. We also landfill our sludge out of our wastewater treatment plant. That's also a positive for us because regulation of PFAS in wastewater sludge is also coming down the pipeline for regulations. So we're in a good position. We have non-detect test results as of 2020. We have well water. We don't land apply our sludge. We want to be able to tell that story to the public and stay on top of it as the regulations are issued so that we can keep continuing to convey that good story. The EPA has revised its guidelines to now include 29 different PFAS components, and remember I just told you we tested for the 20 that were in place just a couple of years ago. 29 different PFAS components plus one metal, which is lithium, and so those components will now be part of the upcoming EPA's regulation, and so we'll be required to test for those 29 components. And again, we want to have strategies in place and communication materials in place and, wording and how we want to go about conveying the message to the general public. And so staff is recommending that we retain the services of a firm, a water PIO, to assist us with developing Batavia-specific communications. We can talk about how our wells work or how our treatment process works, what we're doing from a distribution standpoint. We could talk about all those Batavia-specific items. Over a 6-month period, this firm would help us to develop materials that would be specific to Batavia. And again, pretty complex and technical materials that we're then going to have to communicate out to the general public. And after the 6 months, we'll continue with our in-house communications manager and our water superintendent and our staff to put out those communications. This is not something that we're envisioning water PIO needing their services long-term, but we do envision needing their services because they're a specialized firm on this topic and can develop narratives and stories and factual listings specific to PFAS. And so we are recommending Resolution 22-104, which would approve the consulting agreement with Water PIO. That's for an amount of $12,000, again, for 6 months worth of work. And this summer, when regulations come out from the US EPA, I would like to be able to be here saying our residents already know about it, and if we can avoid having residents come up here and say, I never heard about this before, what's going on, well, that's money well spent for us. So that's kind of where I would recommend.
I guess when I read through this memo and looked at that, I also thought about the time that our staff spends today on what they have to do, what their jobs entail today. And, if we were to take and say, okay, we need to take a staff member and just devote one person's time to do this over the next 6 months, how do we do that? And so I think this is money well spent outside of our organization to do this because they know what they're doing, they've done this, and I think whatever we get as a product out from them, then we can use that moving forward, and then if we need them, we can bring them back in.
Yeah, I'm hoping we never need their services, but they'll be there as a resource for us if we do, and they'll already have a level of understanding of our system. So.
Anybody else have any comments? Mark?
Yeah, I'm in favor of doing this. I do notice that it's not budgeted. So do we have the money from somewhere else that we're not doing a budget amendment on this, are we?
No, we are not. Actually, that's why we're here, because it's not budgeted for 2022. We will be budgeting the remainder of the cost for 2023, but for 2022, we'll be having the months of November and December, so $4,000. We won't need to do a budget amendment for that.
And it'll fall under professional services.
Okay, thank you.
Tom?
I'll just add that in addition to the 60 Minutes, the Chicago Tribune did a huge piece on it this summer, and it was actually the first that I have ever heard about any of these things. And so I reached out to Laura and Gary, and it was good to know that they already knew about it. They were already looking into it. So I think the residents in our city will enjoy, learning about it from us as well.
Thank you.
Better to learn from us than to read a story in the newspaper or watch it on TV and then come in and ask us what are we doing about this? Why is this a story? And we don't know anything about it.
And I think we have a good story to tell.
Right.
And I think that's the point, is to get out in front of it.
And also, I think you have a great get the story out to the public.
Yep, all the channels.
At that level, so that I think that'll work really well.
Agreed.
Okay. See, move forward.
Thank you.
Up next is item 13, which
You'll
is...
need to vote on that, Alderman.
Oh, we do need to. Yes, we do. Okay. Would be a resolution, I'll make the motion that we recommend a council resolution 22-104R approving a consulting agreement with Water PIO LLC for PFAS communications planning.
Second.
Motion by Wolf, second by Connolly. Roll call, please.
Wolf,
Aye.
Barron,
Aye.
Lehman,
Aye.
Ayazi,
Aye.
Malay,
Aye.
Ewer,
Aye.
Saron,
Aye.
Vogelsinger,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Rosado,
Aye.
Beck,
Aye.
Connolly,
Aye.
Chanzit,
Aye.
and Silva.
Aye.
Motion carried 14-0.
Okay. Now we can move on to item number 13, which is resolution 22-105R, authorizing execution of notice to intent to award Brandt Excavating Incorporated, Morris, Illinois, for the lead service line replacement project in the amount of $3,426,389.
If you recall, the city was awarded a principal forgiveness loan for lead service water replacements. As part of that loan process, we have to follow very specific steps, and one of those steps is for council to pass a resolution executing the notice of intent to award the Brandt Excavating. This is not the award, but rather this is a notice that the city intends to award. It's just a step in the process that we have to go through with the IEPA. Thank you, yes. Steve Dennison is here tonight from EEI, in case anyone does have any questions. We had excellent turnout for this project. In the end, we ended up with 7 bidders, and that's a really good turnout for such a large project of an extensive scope. And the lowest responsible bidder was Brandt Excavating. And so we're recommending to move forward with Resolution 22-105, which is just the intent of a notice of intent to award.
So moved.
Second. Motion by Saron, second by Solfa. Roll call, please.
Saron,
Aye.
Vogelsinger,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Rosado,
Aye.
Beck,
Aye.
Connolly,
Aye.
Chanzit,
Aye.
Silva,
Aye.
Wolf,
Aye.
Barron,
Aye.
Lehman,
Aye.
Ayazi,
Aye.
Malay,
Aye.
and Ewer.
Aye.
Motion carried 14-0.
I love when we're doing something good for the environment and we have to waste more paper to get to that point.
Thank you.
Thanks, Gary. Okay, up next is item 14, discussion on video gaming licensing.
I'll step out for this one, Alan.
Okay. Let the record reflect that Alderman Beck has left the proceedings. And who wants to start this?
I'll go ahead.
Mark, you want to go ahead and start it since you're the one that asked for it?
I asked for it, so.
Right.
Yeah, I'm not gonna say too much because I've said a lot about this before, and I know that there's some differing opinions on it, but knowing that the salon is trying to get licensing, and it's a quote-unquote easy thing to say no to them because there's nothing in our ordinances that say they should get one, but I know that there's people that recently left council that wish they hadn't voted yes for him in the first place. People still on council that wish they hadn't voted yes in the first place. And it's slowly proliferating. In the 5 years I've been in council, we've approved 4 more locations. I've said this before, the 2 highest generating locations are the Speedway and Rosati's. I mean, Rosati's is not a place you go to hang out. Speedway is not a place you go to hang out. Number 3 is Crosstown, so that's kind of a hangout place, that's a sports bar. But what are people going to Speedway and Rosati's for? They're going to spend money that they may not have, given the location of those. They are in 2 of the lower income areas in Batavia. Although I voted no on these, I don't know that we really have a leg to stand on a conditional vote on it. They've met the conditions, and saying no, I don't think we have a legal leg to stand on. So people can say, oh, well, we still have a vote. I don't know that we do, and Laura, and maybe legal needs to advise us on that, but I don't think we can really vote no on any of those conditional use permits that we have out there. So it doesn't really do anything for us. And again, we've talked about this before. You have a lot of people in town that are like, hey, we want to be Mayberry. Stop. Don't build 6-story condos. Don't do these things that take away from that hometown feel. And this is definitely the thing that takes away from hometown feel. It's almost every establishment now on Wilson that can have it has it. There's not many left. And if somehow the salon got theirs, then gas stations are next, and convenience stores, and it'll go, because we'll have no leg to stand on to say no. If we put an ordinance, or we basically remove the ordinance, grandfathered everybody in, we're not losing revenue. Most of these places probably will never go out of business. Speedway's never going out of business. I mean, they're just, that Speedway, they've got a sweet corner there. They're making tons of revenue. They're not going anywhere. A lot of these other places, that's what's propping them up, to be honest, is having the gaming. And that's why some of these places are like, hey, I could really use the gaming because that's some extra revenue. It's an extra 50, 60,000 grand a year in my pocket. And I get it. Geez, if somebody was going to give me another $50,000 and I had to do next to nothing to make it, I'd be all over it. But maybe that's not the business that we need. That's not the business we want to attract in this town. Because there's business owners out there that may be thinking, I've got this, I don't plan on staying here forever, but it's kind of one of those things that I'd like to be able to transfer. And I know you can't transfer liquor licenses, you can't transfer any licenses like that. I'd be willing, if it helped to appease any fears out there that, hey, then these places are just all going to get up and leave and go somewhere else. And I'd be willing, if somebody wanted to, quote unquote, transfer it, to be allowed that, hey, whoever has it now and the next business owner, if they were to sell, to allow their property to be valuable. I'd be okay with that as a way to kind of extend our revenue generating, because frankly, that's all this is. This is about revenue generating. There's, Aurora is likely to approve a huge casino expansion and move, not because it's, good for the area, because it's good for revenue. So, I'd like to discuss changing the ordinance so that we do not allow any more, period. But like I said, I'd be okay with extending them for quote unquote one sale.
Well, I'm not arguing anything Mark just said, but I will bring out some different points of view on it. I will tell you that probably almost every new restaurant and many of the existing bars who don't have the license have been in my office in the last 6 months to a year asking if they can get one. So there are a lot out there that want to get it. He brought up Aurora. That's a very, very interesting conversation to bring here to Batavia. Because the unknown about that one is that I understand there's 2 school districts in Aurora that are just absolutely mad as hell about this. Because the casino now sits in downtown Aurora on the Fox River. So the districts divide the tax increase, property taxes between them. Well, now guess what? We're moving that baby out to north of I-88 on Farnsworth. And guess what school district boundary that's in? Batavia. So Batavia's school district is going to get one heck of a lot of nice revenue here once that thing gets built, because I guess it's 2 casinos and a, I don't know, 300 or 400 room hotel and a bunch of other stuff. So, I don't know how you say, when you're having all this flowing around you, I don't know how you say no to others, because, some of the little guys that are, the gentleman over there at 105 East Wilson,
Mark Hogan.
Wilson Street Tavern, he's really been pushing to get a license. And so, there's a lot of people that think that this is their salvation, this will keep them going. So, as most of you, or all of you probably remember, I was an opponent to the idea we would let marijuana come into Batavia. But then I stepped back and we agreed to let the citizens decide that, and we had a public referendum and 61% voted for it. So it's here now, and I don't know if we'll ever get any distribution of it, because that is so political in the annals of the state of Illinois right now that you got to be very well politically connected to get yourself a marijuana license. And so as a result of that, you've got a situation here where we still don't have any marijuana in town, but we've said we'd allow it to be sold. So I don't know, I guess I differ from Mark from the perspective that, as I look down the road and look at the challenges government's going to have as far as financing themselves, and everything seems to have a rising price tag on it. And I was just in a conversation today with a group of mayors at Metropolitan Mayor's Caucus, and the conversation was, what's the state of Illinois done to the motor fuel tax? And they've done a very interesting thing to it. Now with the advent and the introduction and the sale of the electric car, there's a lot of electric cars now being bought and put on the roads of Illinois, and they're good for the environment and everything else. But guess what? They don't pay no motor fuel tax. And so the question keeps being asked to the Illinois General Assembly, how do you tell a car that's gas, that's probably doing the same wear and tear on a road that somebody that's got an electric one is doing, how do you say one doesn't have to pay the tax and one does? So I think that's going to be a heated battle. There's people waiting to bring that one up. I think it's, as somebody said today, nothing's going to be said about it till after November the 8th. But there's a lot of battles waiting in the wings over all this revenue and who is not getting it, and how much the state of Illinois is cutting themselves up to. But I think, we are, because of good leadership by Laura and Peggy, we've got pretty good finances, and we right now have one of the lowest property tax rates. Our city rate is one of the lowest in the region, 73 cents, comparison to our friends in Aurora, which I believe is $2.11. So, we've got some really good things going here, but we need revenue to keep ourselves in that ballywhack, that we can make sure that we're making sure that we got money to run this place the way we want to run it. And if this is one of them, I go out there to Speedway, as Mark just talked, and there's a lot of people sitting out there, and I'm the mayor of the town, I'm looking at those folks, and there's nobody there that I know. So I don't know where they're I don't think they're Batavians, maybe they are, but they certainly seem to be rolling in there, and they're wanting to be in that and do that. So I'm not screaming and howling in opposition here, but I just think there's another wide range of conversation we have to have as to whether or not this is good or bad. If nothing else, it is a nice source of revenue for the city of Batavia to have at a time when I think we're going to need nice sources of revenue.
Tony?
I fully agree with Mark. When we had this discussion before, and we changed it to say, well, we'll decide on a case-by-case basis. Here we are, that there's been 4 more. And so, and as the mayor says, there's many waiting in the wings for it.
Absolutely.
Is that what we want? I guess, we're the ones that decide that. Do we want a town that's, inviting establishments that are basing their business model on collecting money from our residents through gambling? How much revenue are we getting? Is it, I haven't looked, but what's it?
It's $150,000 per year.
Okay. And that's, I agree, that's a good amount of money, but how much damage is being done by those that are paying that? Because 150,000 is just a portion of that money that's lost by citizens. We're here to serve the citizens. We're not here to, we tax them. Should we, make revenue on their loss also? I fundamentally, disagree with it. And we're going to, as we've seen, it's growing. And as the mayor said, it's going to grow even more. But I think we have an opportunity now to put out the message, which other towns have done, many other towns have done, and said, look, we're not going down that route. We can stop it. I agree, Mark. We can't, we need a grandfather. I understand, Mark Hogan's, he was here from the beginning because he didn't apply then, but I was, I'm opposed to it. We as a council need to decide, are we gonna, is part of our advertising, come set up business here because you can take money through people's loss and gambling.
And just to be clear, we aren't paid our revenues based on the players' losses, where we get a portion of what gets played. So the State Gaming Commission determines what the winning percentage needs to be in order to allow the gambling to occur. So but
It's
on the
ultimately,
revenues.
it's because it's profitable
Yeah.
from losses and we're paid that, so. The reality is that $150,000 came from people losing money.
They
And
lose.
some of them could not.
some of
afford
them
it.
lost. I'm sure that some of them won. That's what keeps them
Oh, yeah, but more
playing,
people
too.
lost than won.
Right. The other thing I wanted to make sure that people take into consideration, just because, Mayor does say that we have been contacted. We've been contacted by a salon business, and she is here tonight. Jen DiCarlo would like to speak. And then also, we have been contacted by gas stations who also want the video gaming to be expanded to allow gas stations to have video gaming, and then also liquor stores who want to have video gaming stations. I just provide that for your information as you discuss whether we want to make any alteration to our ordinances. And then also Alderman Chanza has his hand up.
Okay. Dan, go ahead.
There you go. Thank you. I just want to make it very, very clear to my colleagues here on the council. Mark, you have not worn me down. I regretted my vote fairly quickly after this thing passed. The testimony that we listened to at the time from experts, the studies that we reviewed, said that this specific type of machine is engineered as the crack of the gambling industry. It is something that preys upon people who least can afford to lose money if they start playing on them. That said, other people play them, they enjoy it, they have disposable income, they set a limit on how much they're going to spend, and then they play. I've been to the Speedway. Your Honor, Mayor, you are generally right. It's not necessarily residents from lower income housing that are using the machines. There's people filling up with diesel, driving through town. So the $150,000 that we're receiving is money that it's a lot of money, and it's not necessarily just being taxed on Batavians, but some of it is. And the reason for my regret is that at the time I said, when I want to gamble, and I do gamble, my game is blackjack. I have to get in a car. I need to drive about 20, 25 minutes to get to Elgin or to Aurora, or I need to fly to Vegas to do that gambling. And that's my MO. I'll do it a couple of times a year. I enjoy it. I think I'm pretty good at blackjack. But the argument was I had to get a car and drive. Now, if this the casino is going to be moving essentially into Batavia, now that argument has gone away from me. So it's going to be even closer to me. And now the temptation for me to play blackjack more often is now in my own face. So it's something I have to think to think about. There is a tremendous amount of hypocrisy with all of these vices. I get it, and we don't necessarily know because it's fairly subjective what the right answer is here. Your Honor, I appreciate you suggesting or going along with the possibility of a referendum for marijuana. I think we missed the boat. Batavia did not get a dispensary. St. Charles is now on the doorsteps of more than one. And it's unfortunate that we didn't act faster to get in line. I get it, it's a political process, but at the same time, had we been standing there with our arms wide open, it's possible we might have landed a dispensary before one of our neighboring towns is getting more than one. Mark, would you be amenable to advising staff to put this to an advisory referendum if it comes back that we get a 2-to-1 margin like we did with the marijuana vote, that council could look very seriously at a grandfathering program like you mentioned? I know there's a very popular chicken wing place I can see from my doorstep that would not be happy if they had to sell their business someday or it changed hands, and they wouldn't be able to sell the possibility of replicating the license that is already in place for a successful business model. I feel like it would be terrible to take that away. From Wilson Street Tavern, it would be terrible to take away that possibility of getting a license that they would have rightfully had they applied sooner. I voted no ceremonially. If it came down to a court battle, of course I'll change my vote to a yes. Because we have no legal right to tell anybody no under these circumstances. So, Mark, the temperature, I believe, has changed on this council, but we need to check and see if the temperature has changed in our town. And maybe our advisory for referendum is the best route to go here.
Yeah, I think I could probably be in favor of a referendum. I did want to, if we don't have enough to eliminate it completely, I did want to point out that in the past 12 months, just under $13 million was put into those machines in Batavia, the 40 machines we have in Batavia. Only 9.7 million came out. So the gaming and these businesses took 3.2 million extra in revenue. We get 150,000 out of that. So that's a lot of money you're telling people to lose for us to make $150,000. So it is so obviously heavily favored for the gaming. Obviously, I mean, it wouldn't be a business. There would be no casinos if it wasn't for the house to win. So.
Just as devil's advocate, what's your position on lottery then?
You know what? I went to Vegas a little while ago, and I lost some money in Vegas. Again, an acceptable amount. I play the lottery when it gets to 100 million or whatever. I think that there's a lot of people that can't control its vice. It's no different of a vice than smoking or drinking or whatever. So it's a vice, and I feel bad for the people that go out there and buy $100 in lottery tickets for every session, just hoping that this is my way out. I get the attraction to playing the video gaming because there's an entertainment value there as you win some, you lose some. There's I'm like Dan, I play blackjack. Sometimes you win some, sometimes you don't. And yeah, it stinks because you don't want to be the person that loses money, but when you see, like I said, Rosati's it's the number two. $2.1 million was put into the machines in Rosati's. Rosati's is not a hangout. It's not a bar. It's not a sports bar. It's not a nightclub. It's none of those things that people are there like, cool, yeah, let's go there and hang out and play. But yet, there are $2.1 million wagered there. Or money put in. $7 million wagered. So.
Tom?
You know, I'm not completely against having, continued discussions on this and, learning more about it. But one thing I think of is that, if anything, I think a lot of public perception is changing in favor of more gambling. You don't have to get in your car to go play blackjack. You can play live blackjack on your smartphone. There's apps to do that. There's sports gambling. I don't do any of it. I'm not someone that likes to gamble, but for us to sit here and say businesses and our residents can't do it in our town, I don't know if I fully support that just yet. I'm open to continuing this conversation, but I just think that's an important thing to think about.
Go ahead.
As I've said in the past, I see this as a business tool for our businesses. The other thing that we need to consider is the people that have won that money. What have they done with that money? A lot of them have put that money back into our community. They haven't just kept it for themselves. They've spent that money to, as the mayor had said, I don't see Speedway audience being their neighbors across the street. I see those as transient people coming in and out that have that money and that time to spend it. Where I think we have the control is the current ordinance that we have in place, where we have very specific things where they have to meet a certain criteria. I don't know with what has been presented of the people that are asking for these licenses, if I would be interested in expanding what we are allowing for that. Some of these businesses have come in and said, we would have to make amendments to our ordinance to allow them to get the licensing. I don't know if I'm at an appetite to allow that, because some of it is, how are we going to control it? I think at some point, there's going to be an oversaturation of these machines. When you go to these businesses, they're not full of people. It's not full. It's one or two people playing at a time. So the machines currently aren't being fully used. So at some point, if we allow, all the bars and restaurants, it's not going to be a revenue generator for them, because they're not going to have enough people, because they're going to go to their places that they find that they want to use. I think it's a business tool for our businesses, and they use that revenue to stay here in Batavia to maintain their business. As you mentioned, you talk about the grandfathering. It's not going to solve the problem. We're still going to have it, still going to be here, and maybe even 10 years from now when we're not here, there's going to be a whole nother council and they may come in and change it.
That's true, but the grandfathering and the elimination of it will mean there'll be no more. So literally every restaurant in this town that serves alcohol
But they won't
can
be
get
going
a
away.
license.
But they haven't applied
They
in
haven't
the
applied,
last
but
5 years.
we've added 4 in the last 5 years.
But some
Yeah,
have gone
4
away.
out of how many
I get
restaurants?
it. Well, and
90?
Denny's never got to applying for theirs, but they wanted theirs. The thing is, they will just pop up everywhere, and they will still be revenue generators. Almost $13 million in cash was put into 40 machines in 1 year. $13 million
But we know
of
nothing
cash.
about the people that put that money in
You're
there.
right.
We
It's
we
still
don't know.
$13 million.
It
That's-
could be just like somebody that budgets to get a coffee every single day. There are some people that may budget, as you do when you go to the casino, to budget to lose this amount of money. I did the exact same thing when I went to Vegas. I budgeted to lose this money. I didn't have the appetite to do it. I came here and I won some money.
They're designed to
I
be
don't-
addictive, just like the video games that you play online, that, oh, it's $1 more to get, 5 extra lives. And those companies make billions in revenue on those little dollar
Alcohol's
microtransactions.
addictive. Gambling
So
on
let's
sports is
just proliferate
addictive.
it. That's my argument. We're just proliferating it. We're not helping the situation. So,
I guess my question would be then where do we stop? Because if you want to talk about destruction or anything else, the lottery, cigarettes, we can add marijuana into it, we can add alcohol into it. How much money do you think has been spent out at the liquor stores that we have liquor licenses for in comparison to the $13 million that was thrown at, or whatever the number was that was thrown at a gambling machine? The reality of that is, where do we stop with that?
should we go further? Should we have like strip clubs on 31 and Wilson?
No, I think this is.
We have restrictions to everything that we have, Mark, and one of the things we have.
But we can't stop. The only restriction on this is that they have to have a liquor license for a year. Beyond that, I voted no, but like Dan said, if we all voted no and they came back and they said, but we met the conditions, you have to give it to us. We would lose a suit in a heartbeat. The only condition we have is that you have to have your liquor license.
And in 5 years, no one has ever challenged that. No one has ever come in and said, I want a liquor license and I want to be able to have a gambling operation with just a liquor license. No one has ever done that. There's a myriad of communities around here that allow that, where you can go in and rent a space in a strip mall. Some of them you don't even have to have a liquor license at in some of the cities, and you can have and you can set it up and you can have whatever they want to call it, the lounge for gambling.
And that's not what I'm arguing, because I know our ordinance doesn't allow that, but we have no.
Correct.
I have no legal standing to say no. I'd say no. Again, if the vote for Wilson Street Tavern ended up being no, he, as a business owner, could have just come and sued and said, I met your conditions.
He's referring to my ceremonial no vote.
And as we all know, with the casino moving within walking and biking distance, we're not going to stop the people from doing it. If they are addicted to it, they are going to find a way to do it.
Yeah,
And it's whether they're destroying their lives and their homes here in Batavia or in another community, we don't know. We don't know the people that are going in. We don't know what they can afford and not afford. That is we don't get those kind of statistics.
Well, again, and I don't know it's on our shoulders to legislate against or legislate for somebody's personal responsibility. I've always had the thing, if I go gambling, I start out with so much money in my left pocket and that's what I get to spend. If I lose it, I lose it. Everything I win goes in my right pocket. And that's just the way that I've always done that. Whatever people have for an addiction or a problem, that's on them and that's their responsibility. And, we can argue about what we would like to see or what we think we should have, available in our town, and that's where we decide. That's for us to, make the ordinances and set them up the way we want them. And so if we decide we want to change it, then we'll vote on it.
Yes.
Mike?
I agree with everything I said. One thing that's always irritated me is the lottery sales. Lottery sales have the cards and everything right at the register. If you walk into 7-Eleven, I'll tell you, when the lottery's big, that line's out the door. I could tell that people at 7-Eleven, they get annoyed because so many people are there just to buy lottery tickets, and those advertisements are right there at the cash register. At least with the gaming, it's off in the distance. It's closed off or it's somewhere off in the store. I understand about the apartments across the street from Speedway, but who's out there saying don't pay $8 for a pack of cigarettes? Don't buy that case of beer. We don't regulate that. And nobody's saying, hey, don't pay $2.99 for that bottle of Mountain Dew. But they do. We can't, I think it's a lot of government overreach here.
Okay. Sarah, I see you got your hand up. Go ahead.
Thank you. there has been a lot of very good points brought up, and it was mentioned, I don't remember who said this before, but there is so many opportunities to gamble now, especially with all of the online sports betting. There's commercials for that all the time. So if it's not happening here, it's happening all over the place. I think it is really hard to regulate, and I definitely have sympathy for people who can't control that. But there are so many vices that are out there. All that said, I don't know that I am interested in expanding the ordinance that we currently have. But looking at the number that have added, 4 is not that many in comparison with how many restaurants we have. I have a lot of conflicted feelings on this, but there is just so many opportunities out there. I don't know how much this is really going to do, but I am not for a huge expansion of it either. Thank you.
Yeah.
I realize that it is true that we can't decide how people use their money or their time or their resources. Like that's not our job here. Our job on council is to determine what we want our city to be, what we want our downtown to be like. And we make decisions like this all the time. We make decisions when a development comes in and they say we want to build houses like this, or we want to build a building like this, and it might even meet our building codes. We might still say, no, we don't want that there. That's not what we want for our downtown or for this neighborhood. We would say that we don't want liquor stores lining Wilson Street. But we're not against liquor stores, we're not against people buying liquor, but we're just gonna say we don't want that every single store in our downtown to be liquor or marijuana or whatever it is. We get to help determine how much of all of these things we have in our town. And I think it's okay to have the discussion. Maybe we don't want video gaming in every store in our downtown. And that's not saying that we're trying to control people or what they're doing with their money or what stores are doing, but we're saying this is what we want for our city and what we want for our community, what we want our children to be around when they're walking through our downtown. If they go into Walgreens to buy a candy bar, do we also want them walking by the video games with the people sitting there playing it? I don't know. And I'm not one to determine what everybody should or shouldn't do, but we do get to make these decisions about what our city is and how it's different than Aurora or Elgin or Geneva. And we won't be the same because we're Batavia. And so we need to make decisions on what we want Batavia to be.
Just a point of clarification on that. At this point, we don't have any cap on the number of liquor licenses. So if somebody, side by side, wanted to be 4 liquor stores in a row, there's nothing in our code that would prevent that.
But would we still get a vote on that?
As long as they met the requirements of the liquor license, I don't think that you'd be able to say no because there's a liquor store next door.
Yeah, I can't remember ever turning down a liquor license.
No.
I met the requirements. In the 8 years I've been here, I was
talking more of liquor stores.
Other
like Cardinal.
Your point
Yes.
is well said and well made. We determine what we want here, and that's, we'll say somebody can't have a colored brick on a development. Is that government overreach? No, there's a difference here, and I'm in the middle because I wish we didn't vote for it, but I can't say no to somebody coming in because I think it is wrong, and I want them to have every opportunity to succeed. So, and I don't feel I can judge and tell people what pleasures they want or don't want. So, your point's well taken. Don't just because liquor stores can't be 4 in a row doesn't mean that wasn't a valid point.
Oh, and I didn't mean that to.
No, I know. I know
what,
that.
What I meant
it
to
was
do
going on.
was to point out that other communities cap the number of liquor licenses that they have, and therefore the next one that applies is a no unless city council changes the ordinance to allow one more license.
When,
And then someone can apply for it.
when I
It's a way of controlling the number.
when I first got on the council, that was one of the things that we did, was every time we needed another liquor
It's
license.
a different way to do
If
it.
there, or when one became available, somebody else was there to get it.
Right.
So that's that's definitely a change. And, I mean, I guess I just look at it as just sheer economics and business. We're not going to get a whole street full of these. We're not going to get,
We have a whole street full of them. We literally
They're
do.
in 8 places in our entire city.
And they're almost all on Wilson Street. Bulldogs, Rosati's, Wilson Street Tavern, Riverside. So half of them are on Wilson Street. We have a whole street full of them. Everybody that can have one has
But when you
one.
walk by,
They're
you're
just
not
not
seeing
there.
them.
right, I was just going to ask you, if you went out and
You don't see 'em.
and we walked out in front out here and we grabbed somebody out of one of the places in town here
You don't see
and
'em.
asked them if they could tell me where the gambling facilities are in town, I bet you they couldn't name but one, possibly.
We also have to remember,
Bulldogs.
there's only so many streets that actually have businesses on them in Batavia. We're in a residential community. Wilson Street's the main
Yeah.
strip here, so, I mean, I suppose you could have some gambling facilities over on Jefferson, maybe over on, I don't know, over on Prairie or something, but who's gonna put something in the middle of the neighborhood? I mean, there's a reason why.
Rosati's is in the middle of a neighborhood. Rosati's is the equivalent of the
Strip mall.
It's in a strip mall.
It's in a strip mall.
surrounded right next to homes. But anyway, it's
Businesses across the street. That's not homes, those are businesses.
There's some homes there.
there's homes right across Prairie from that. But anyway,
There's a home.
One home.
and right down Prairie. I mean, there's homes within a block of Rosati's. But anyway,
There's a liquor street across from the houses too.
Rosati's is the equivalent of those stores that you see in Aurora that is just like, hey, here you go, here's your establishment, and they sell one thing, they sell pizza. They're making almost $200,000 in revenue off of that. That's why Rosati's is still around, is because they don't even have to sell pizza. All they have to do is sell $200,000 in.
It's a restaurant
gaming.
with how many locations in Chicagoland? I don't think Rosati's exists for video
Yeah.
gaming.
That's an individual owner. It's not owned by, it's owned by an individual owner. That's a franchise, so.
Franchise.
Right, and that's one of the reasons that they're located here, is because they have that opportunity.
Exactly. Oh, great. Let's
But
bring
they
in all the
were here-
restaurants that want to survive on gaming.
But they were here
Anyway.
even before that.
Yeah.
For a long time.
Tony?
Yeah, I just wanted to respond to a couple things. Alderman Barron, you said those that win money can come and spend in the community. Well, it's a net loss, so there is no one winning. There's maybe some individuals, but overall, people are losing money, so therefore they have less money to spend in our town, and is that hurting our tax base? So your argument that there's some people that win and they go and spend it in our town and that's beneficial, it's a net loss, because you got people that have less money to spend in our community where we can tax at a higher rate. The other thing.
But we don't know where they're from. They could have come from another community. We could have a bunch of people losing a ton of money.
I understand that. Alderman Lehman, I agree with you. We can't control the lottery. We can't control the casino in the next town, but we can control what happens in Batavia. And that's my point, is do we want to have the sign out there saying, come do business in Batavia because you can gamble, or you can have video gaming and collect money from our citizens.
But
Sure,
that's
they're
not
going to
the
get some people
message.
from out of there. But that's where we're going if we continue to expand like that. That's my belief.
I would have a
No.
question, and maybe Jeff, you could answer it. Do we not have the right to control lottery being sold at gas stations? Don't know? Okay.
Probably could as a home rule community. I suppose you could
Yeah.
ban the sale of that, but it'd be unusual.
I also think of how many new businesses have opened up along Randall Road or opened up along Wilson Street in the last 5 years since we've had this gambling ordinance, and how many of them have actually come in and asked for a license. Because the other thing is this is just not something that you decide one day, hey, I'm going to go open up a pizza place and I'm going to have video video gaming in there and that's how I'm going to survive, I think that's a component of their business. I mean, almost every one of them. I look at the last one that we did for East Wilson. You know, when that became available to this community, he didn't want it, he didn't need it, he didn't think he wanted it. And then as things changed and things evolved, that's a component of the business.
Didn't Aquaviva have one? And then they decided, nope, this isn't for us.
Yes.
So again, it's a business tool and kind of what but Sarah said and what the mayor said, you know, kind of with the marijuana, I think, Alan, you said the two, we missed our opportunity. And if we start giving away the video gaming, you can play video gaming anywhere. If we start limiting and not having it, then we're going to lose that money. And it's not necessarily, we're going to lose it, and we're not going to be able to do all the great things that we do for our neighbors. And we're in our community. I don't think that it's screaming Batavia, the Las Vegas of the Midwest. It's not out there. It's not flashy. It's limited. It's a tool for the businesses.
And I believe that from the very start of this, when we discussed this to begin with, was that the way we had it set up with the requirements that we had with a liquor license and what that in a way limited those businesses that would want to use this, that we were never going to have 20 or 30 or 50 of them out there. And, you know, I don't see that that's the issue because I look at, you know, some of the restaurants that are out there, one, they don't need it, they don't want it, and they won't have it. You know, I know that there's other places that could, you know, Portillo's could have it. They got enough room, enough space. If they wanted to offer that, they could. You know, and that would be well within our ordinance and well within their rights to do that. And they don't. So, I mean, I'm not worried about a proliferation of it getting worse. I really am not. You know, and if we're going to start picking on vices that we're afraid that we're taking money away from people, then we've really, first of all, got to start talking about alcohol. Because that's the worst one. You want to put dollars and cents to it, or you want to put lives to it, that's the worst one. And until we're ready to do that, I'm not going to climb up on top of a mountain and scream that we need to restrict people's rights of what they can or can't spend their money on. Nick?
Well, I mean, we're going to go in circles
Yeah.
on this. We have three options, right? Keep it as it is, get rid of it, or let it expand like crazy. So I think we should figure out where we stand before, I mean, we could do this. It's a tough, and usually I like to have a strong opinion when I'm here. I don't have one here. Then we can debate this for forever and not really get anywhere. And if it's not a point, if there's consensus, let's stick with it for now until we bring this up again.
Yeah. I mean, I guess to me, the options that I've heard tonight that people want to talk about is one was a referendum. You know, do we want to let it stay as it is? Do we want to expand? How do you write the referendum question?
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot, there's a lot to be answered just to do that. The other one is, again, leave it like it is, you know, and, you know, monitor it. Do we want to go out and just go out there and arbitrarily pick a number of 20 or whatever you want to pick and say that's where we end it at? Like we used to do with liquor licenses, unless, you know, we get to the point where whatever the council makeup is here wants to change that, that's what it is. You know, or do we want to go backwards and have a vote and say, let's grandfather what's out there and let's not have any more? Those, I think, to me, are our options. You know, how we want to move forward with it. You know, if we want to move forward anyway on it. You know, and I think we haven't heard anything from Keenan, we haven't heard anything from George. So, you guys want an opportunity to say anything, now's the time.
Alf, it's George.
Go ahead.
Everything that could possibly be said, I think, has been said 3 times over. Mark and I discussed this offline once, and I very much am in the position of people have a right to their vices. You know, you mentioned alcohol, other people have as well. That's always the one to me that gets me, because alcohol is the crack cocaine of alcoholics. And you can get alcohol at every grocery store, almost every restaurant, and damn near every gas station. So I have a hard time telling people they can't, a business owner especially, try to save their business if that's the case that they're in, or keep the business that they have. It's just, it's difficult for me to speak against it. That's all.
Thank you.
I'm going to continue to say no, because I also, again, and I totally agree that I don't have the right to tell somebody or business they can or cannot do it, but I will continue to say no because I don't want to see it expand. I do like the option of putting a cap on it. Where does that cap go? What's the number of pending licenses that are pending now? I don't know.
No.
Is there a percentage that we want of businesses in town? I don't know. But until we figure that out, that's where I'm at.
Okay. I feel like I'm like juggling right now, and
Well, it
you know,
feels like the straw poll is that there's not enough to do anything, but I don't know if there's enough to
do
put a
anyway.
cap. I don't know if there's enough to put a cap on it
Yeah.
and say, hey, we're at where we're at and it's it, or if there's two more that have said that they're interested, then the cap is 10, and then enough is enough. And again, yes.
Oh, reading the room, it looks like you might have lost some ground.
Yeah. And I get it. I'm not trying to tell anybody
What was
that they
the
can't
comment?
do, that we've lost ground. That there used to be more in favor of a restriction than there are right now. But yeah, obviously I'm not going to stop anybody from doing anything. They'll go wherever they have to go. They'll use online gaming. They'll do whatever they have to do to meet their vice. The thing is, and Leah said it the best, and it's like we have a choice of what we want in this town, and we do it all the time. We do it all the time. That we say, nope, that we are not going to grant that variance. We do that all the time, and we take money away from businesses or investors that want to do stuff that they expect that they're going to make a profit, and we tell them no. So it is our right to do that and make this town what we want it to be. Or just every variance that comes in here say, yep, 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 and have 10-story, 12-story buildings. Not that people are coming to that with to us, but nobody ever envisioned that somebody would come with a 6-story building. Whether or not you want to call it 4 or 6 stories, I'm just being bombastic for effect here. I just think that we should limit what we do because it's not an attractive part of the town. Geneva doesn't have it because they don't need it. I don't know, because they decided that that's not something that they need to go down the path. And if it's such a great thing, then everybody would have it. And it's obviously not such a great thing. And communities make decisions based on what they want.
How long has this been in place? About 5 years. And there's been very little expansion. I know you want to say that 4 more have happened in the last 4 years, but we have 0 pending licenses, and I think Wilson Street Tavern is that the only one that we've granted in the last year? And before that was Funway?
I thought Mayor said that there's people talking to you guys right now that want them.
There are liquor stores, there are gas stations.
Okay, I thought
there
he
are
was saying
salons.
restaurants that want them.
Yeah, I don't know of any
We
restaurants.
do have one. We have one.
We have one?
Yeah.
So they're,
East China.
as the mayor said, there's a number of people wanting to expand it.
Yeah.
I think we need to consider caps for nothing else, to protect those that have it. You talked about it being saturated. Maybe the saturation wouldn't be such a good thing in that regard, and harm the businesses that do have it now. So,
But you look at the numbers of some of the businesses or some of the locations that have it, and at some point, they may not want to have it because their numbers aren't up there with what they're having to spend to maintain it.
Exactly.
So,
So shouldn't we protect those people that we said, yes, we know you need that business tool? Stay viable,
why should we
and all of a
protect
sudden-
business owners? We are not in
You
the,
just talked about protecting business owners.
Is it
no,
something
it's
that we
the
could-
it's a tool for the business owner to provide them out there. We're not guiding the business owners and saying we're protecting you, or here we're putting this license in your pocket or anything. It's a tool for them to work towards to see if it's right for their business. And if we want to have all these restaurants go and saturate, at some point, some of them are going to be like, it's not worth my time, it's not worth my money to spend on this. It's
So
not
what's the damage
bringing.
that's done to Batavia and the image of Batavia while that.
It's to the business. But I don't know if there is
Batavia
a,
businesses.
I don't know if there's a damage.
I was gonna say, I don't think that there's a reputation out there for it, because the proliferation of it is so saturated within the Fox Valley. It's not like somebody makes a decision, I'm gonna go out to an Italian restaurant and it better not have video gaming in the building.
That's not what
I mean, that's not part of somebody's decision-making process. Now, I can see where I'm gonna go to the salon where I can have a beer while I'm there, or, I'm gonna go in here and I'm gonna have a massage where I can have a glass of wine when I go in for that. I think that is not so much a different thing, but that is truly something that people will make decisions business-wise on, whether or not they, frequent a business that has that available to them. It's just like, why do people decide that they want to go spend $4 or $5 on a cup of coffee versus 99 cents at McDonald's? There's some value to it when you get exactly what you want. And that's, to me, one of the reasons why some places want this and some don't.
I guess in a second, Scott, the question would be that those that are saying, no, I don't want to eliminate it, are any of those no's willing to cap it?
Yeah, I was gonna say, if we wanted to do that, we would have to like make a motion to direct staff to draft an ordinance that would
How about-
limit it to,
Well,
or even just,
why don't you just take a vote on whether you
Yeah,
got the
straw
votes to do
poll on
it instead
whether or
of
not you
drafting
wanna-
an ordinance?
That was my point.
okay?
Yeah,
Laura,
yes?
one of the things to think about also is the different, besides the expansion of just, within the restaurants, is whether we want to expand within the other uses themselves. So, I think that ends up being, one question, do you want to go beyond restaurants and taverns and go into the gas stations and everything else? So that's one thing. And then second thing is also the conditional use. If we decide that we want to expand the uses, expand this into different uses, we probably want to do want to consider rescinding the conditional use requirement, because as we mentioned earlier in the meeting, that the conditional use allows us to regulate these, but it doesn't allow us necessarily to completely prohibit them. We can impose, hours of operation, locational parts, or regulations and things like that. But, unless there's a truly compelling reason to say no, because it's, next to a church or to school or something like that, then you can't really just say no to it from the conditional use process typically.
Okay.
And tonight, I don't think that I heard a lot of support for expanding
No.
it to other uses, and so we would restrict it as we have to A, E, and E3.
Because I think that in and of itself, and again, this goes back to when we
Control it.
originally wrote the ordinance for this, that was one of the things that we had as a control on it, was by allowing it in only certain liquor licenses. And that in and of itself has only, really set up 9 licenses, and one of them gave it back already. So from that standpoint, I don't know how else you control it any better than what that has done by limiting it to those liquor licenses. I understand you don't want it.
Cap
I get that. I totally get that.
Cap it.
I think then when we cap it to however many of those licenses that are there.
Make a motion.
Yeah, if you want to make a motion, I look at it and think, okay, if we have 25 those licenses, and I don't know what the numbers are of what those licenses are out there right now that have it available to have video gaming.
7, so I think we've got one fraternal organization and we have one truck stop. So those 2 licenses qualify for other reasons than the liquor license. So
Okay.
what I'm hearing is you'd like to cap the liquor license, video game.
Because we have three
licenses.
categories of liquor license
Yes.
ones. So if you take those and say we have 25 of those liquor licenses, would that be the number that we would cap it at? Or would we cap it at 50% of that? Or would we cap it at 10% of that? I mean, that's the discussion we have to have then. I know you'd rather cap it at 0%.
Well, we cap it at the number that exists right now
Yeah.
would be my thing. I guess, I don't know what I would make a motion on because there's no resolution or ordinance in front of me.
You could make a motion that you are capping the number of licenses at the number that exists today, so that if any, we would not be able to issue an additional license unless the ordinance was changed to expand the number of licenses.
But what would that do for the one that's currently pending?
Denied.
Fine. I would do +1 because again, that person wasn't in they're not aware of this discussion that is applying for that. So I make a motion that we cap the number of licenses for video gaming at 9.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion to cap the number of video gaming licenses at 9. And second, motion by Ewer, second by Malay. Roll call, please.
Ewer,
Aye.
Zarone,
See what you cost.
No.
Vogelsinger,
I want to amend it.
No? No.
Miller,
Aye.
Rosato,
No.
Beck is absent. Connolly,
No.
Chanzit,
No.
Sofa,
No.
Wolf,
No.
Barron,
No.
Lehman,
Aye.
Ayazi,
No.
and Malay.
Aye.
Motion failed 4-9.
Okay. So I think you get a sense of where the majority is here on that. I guess what I will say is I don't think we're done talking about it, but I think we have to really figure out what, I know your goal, Mark, is to not have any, or not have any more.
Not have any more, because I know that, again, these are going to be around for a long time. These establishments that are well-established, and I was even, like I said, I was willing to say, go ahead and transfer it, so to speak, allow it at that address through a sale. So that's not saying get rid of them. Eventually, in 30 years, there would be 0, but I think it's going to take a long time for it to be eliminated. It doesn't eliminate the revenue that everybody's worried about. It's not a lot of revenue in our entire budget, though. It's like 1%, less than 1% of our budget. So it's not significant in that. So yeah, I think, again, not telling anybody go next door then, go to Aurora, go spend your money down there, but why make it so easy for our residents to say, oh, I'm here, I'm picking up my pizza, oh crap, I lost another $20. Sucks.
I'd like to just make my vote clear. I'm for limiting it, just not by the number or by the classification.
Right, I feel like, we've discussed this a lot, but I feel like the original ordinance that we wrote was limiting enough to, in my view, control what we allow in this town. It doesn't allow every liquor store to have one. It doesn't allow every gas station to have one. It doesn't allow somebody to go out and rent an empty, spot out at the strip mall to open it up, get a liquor license for years, and then have a gambling establishment that's nothing more than, a drink and a spot at a gaming table. So, I think what we have already here, I think has proved over 5 years to me that it works. That it's controlled it to the point where I don't think it's obnoxious. I don't think it's overbearing. I don't think, people look at, oh, gee, I want to go to Batavia and open up a restaurant there so I can have video gaming. I think they realize once they're there that it is a source of revenue. I mean, it's 150 grand to the city, but each one of those businesses is making more than.
Only a couple businesses are making more than that. The businesses are not making a ton more than that. So.
Right, it would be, divide that up between all the businesses that are out there, but they are making money off of it. It's not like it's, costing them money to have the units in their building and not making any money from it, or they wouldn't do it. And that may be the case of the one, why they gave it back, is it just might not have been something that people wanted while they were there. And I get that. So, I think that that's a decision that needs to be made by the business owner, how they want to handle that. And again, I'd like to see the numbers of what our liquor licenses would allow. Would it allow 10 more video gaming establishments, or would it be 50? So, that I guess would be something that would, and I don't have a problem with us saying we're going to limit it to 20 or whatever the number we would pick. And then, some other council in the future wants to change that number to 5 or to 50, that's their choice. Okay. Are we done beating this horse? Or do we bet on another one?
May I request that staff bring you an update to our ordinance that would remove the conditional use for your consideration? Just because that has generated a lot more work on behalf of staff, and as Scott points out, it isn't really a barrier to people applying for these licenses.
Okay. I think that's.
I say no because I want this discussion to come up every single time this happens. So I'm absolutely opposed to that, because if we don't do it, then whether it's in a couple of years when I'm no longer on council and you guys want to do it then, fine, do it then. But I want people to always remember every single time, why is this conditional use? Why do we have these anyway? Every single time. Otherwise, then it does start to go, and we don't even recognize it until you're at that 25.
Yeah, just so you know, it would be a text amendment of the zoning code that we'd have to go to the plan commission for to do the amendment. It wouldn't be just in front of the council.
And just for our curiosity, Scott, can you find out how many licenses that we, or Laura, you want to do that? And then send that out to everybody, just so we have a listing of, the 3 categories that we have. And then we have the 2 that are outside the liquor license requirement, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So.
VFW and.
Just a quick question. When they go through, when a business goes through the conditional use, is there additional work for the business going through that process?
Attending meetings.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, there's a public hearing that's required, there's notice, there's signs.
So what we're asking.
They have to attend the plan commission. I mean, it's a process.
To go through additional meetings to come in front of us for that.
Yes.
Which then puts a bad look on us as not being very business friendly. Because we're making them go through all these hoops. I'm just letting you know that.
They're going to make a significant amount of money to spend a couple hours in meetings. So, yes, they can come and talk to us, in my opinion.
Okay.
Hey, I'm only 1 vote, so go ahead and if everybody wants committee to do it, then.
Okay. We'll move on then to item 15, which is project status.
So under project status, I just want to touch on a couple of things. When we changed to the format of doing our committee of the whole meetings on the 2nd and 4th Tuesday, and of course, city council meetings are on the 1st and 3rd Mondays, I wasn't thinking about what happens if a month starts on a Tuesday. Then we end up, the first and third Mondays are the same week as the second and fourth Tuesdays. So, November is like this.
Nothing.
And so I think if we want to keep with our format of one meeting per week, we would have our committee of the whole meetings on the 1st and the 15th. And then we would have our city council meetings, of course, have been published and whatnot, on the 7th and the 21st. In November, we also want to start talking about the budget. In my update I sent you, I put the wrong date for the first meeting for the budget. I should have put Thursday, November 10th is when we wanted to have our first budget meeting. We had previously tried to schedule the budget meeting on the same night as a committee of the whole meeting, but, you know, we like to really dig in deep and on our budget, and so we'd like that to be the only topic that is covered in that meeting. And then that offers us
November?
November,
November 10th?
Yeah.
Is a Thursday?
isn't it?
What time?
November, 7 o'clock. And that offers us the opportunity to then have the public meeting, the public hearing on the budget at the COW the following week on that 15th, November 15th. And then we also can reserve, we get a bonus Tuesday since we start on a Tuesday. The 29th of November could be a date that we use for a second budget meeting if we need it.
If anybody's here.
Right. But we did only have the one meeting last year and had a few questions to answer, but then I think that you guys voted on the budget at the same meeting where we had the public hearing on the budget and sent it to council. So there's that. And so I wrote that in my weekly update to you. Mayor had to leave, but he asked me to let all of you know today that he and the police chief and the fire chief were invited to the Kane County Board meeting today, where they were presented with this appreciation award for the city of Batavia providing assistance and resources to establish the Kane Vax Hub in March of 2021 at 501 North Randall Road. And there were 114,433 doses of vaccine that were administered at the Vax Hub, the most given in the state outside of Cook County, protecting many residents from Kane County and beyond. And we're really proud of having received this recognition and proud to have been partners with Kane County in being able to establish that Vax Hub in our community. And that's all I have unless anybody has any questions about projects. I know we've got an executive session too tonight.
Questions? Nobody with hands up online? Okay, we'll move on to others. Does anybody have any others tonight? In case anybody didn't know, we beat Geneva. They did
It's always
score.
good to say it again.
They did score. I will say that was the one depressing part of the night. They did score.
Yeah, but they ran it back right afterwards. So.
Yeah, the next play was
It was
a
crowded.
comeback.
Did they have an estimate for attendance? I was there.
It was probably about 5,000.
About five.
is what they
That
think,
was
yeah.
my guess.
Yeah, I
It was
mean,
crowded.
it's been twice already this season that it's been packed where it's multiple layers deep around the fence, so it's been a lot of
That's
fun.
where I was. I didn't get a
Yep. And we hit a new high this year. We had 746 people watching on VATV at one point.
Wow, that's
For a
fantastic.
home game, that's really good.
How many?
746 at one point, so,
That's awesome.
yeah. And the
That
number.
doesn't include all the people that are pal Joey's.
Right, and that's views, so if you've got six people sitting in your living room watching it, it doesn't
Pal
count.
Joey's was packed
Yeah,
both times.
good. And they, of course, had it on, right? The game on?
Well, yeah.
Okay, good. Okay, then up next, I will need a motion to go into executive session on litigation.
So moved.
Second,
Motion by Sofa, second by
Rosado.
Rosado. Roll call, please.
Sofa,
Aye.
Wolf,
Aye.
Barron,
Aye.
Lehman.
Aye.
Ayasi,
Aye.
Malay,
Aye.
Ewer,
Aye.
Saron.
Aye.
Vogelsinger.
Aye.
Miller.
Aye.
Rosato.
Aye.
Beck.
Aye.
Connolly.
Aye.
And Chancet.
Aye.
Okay,
All right. see
we'll
you
go
on
in
the other
executive
side.
session and